You are live. Hooray. You had wrestling yesterday for the kids?
Yeah. Yep,
Awesome.
They had a tournament in McGuanago.
McGuanago. Yo, that's far as fuck from you.
It's not that bad. It's like, I think it's the next exit past Muskego, so it's whatever.
Yeah, I guess you live
Local
like really
enough.
close to the freeway, so you can kind of like, you can bounce around, right?
Yeah.
Okay. If you would like, when I lived in Milwaukee, I lived always on the east side. I lived downtown and shit. So trying to leave Milwaukee to go out into the burbs sucked. But growing up
We're in
burbs,
Mequon.
you bounce from place to place.
We're in Mequon. We're like right in the middle of 43 and 45. So it's not quick on off, but it's either highways 10 minutes away.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not bad.
When I first moved to Milwaukee, that was the most important things to me were that I had quick, easy access to the gym, which at that time was Reds, and that I could be on the freeway in less than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Because there were so many spots in Waukesha where like during rush hour, it would take you 20 minutes to get to the freeway. And now it's 40 minutes to get wherever you're trying to go because you just, nah, not doing that shit.
What's it like out there by you now?
So when we bought the house out here originally, we were living like 15 minutes outside of Trenton. We specifically bought that house so that we could train at Ricardo Almeida Jiu-Jitsu. Ricardo was dope. He was nothing but good to me every time I ever saw him. He's played as pivotal a role as most other people. Like there's a handful of people that I could put on a list where like meeting you and training and training there or whatever has caused a serious pivot in my life, right? Like you're on that
list. It impacted you.
Yeah. Like he changed the way that I view combat. He changed the way that I had to view my own game. Like within like 2 weeks of being there, he's like, "You've got a really good close guard." I was like, "What? I don't play close guard. I'm a half guard player." He's like, "Yeah, you shouldn't play half guard in MMA. You have a really good close guard." I was like, "What are you talking about?" And then for the next 9 months, the only thing I did was close guard. And I went from like, "Oh, I have an okay close guard," to I'm submitting black belts in my close guard very easily.
He knows what he's seeing. It's like when I can see a guy in the gym sparring and I just know he's got talent. I'm like, man, you're going to be really good at this. And he's like, I just got my ass kicked all day. What are you talking about? I'm like, no, I know, but I just know what I'm seeing.
Yep. He can see stuff that normal people can't see because he is one of the 3 most decorated combat sports athletes period, but specifically combat sports athletes I've ever met, right? Like at the same gym, they have Frankie Edgar, who right now competes at 135.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to break it down, he has a strong argument for being the greatest lightweight of all time.
Like he's on the Mount Rushmore.
Of specifically lightweights, right? Like of all of MMA, sure, but like 20 pounds heavier.
Yeah.
And he could, like, up until Khabib, I would have argued for him.
Man, Khabib's so weird. His run is so short to me. Mm-hmm. Like
there's not a
truly
lot of
truly dominant, but people are, they zero in on the zero loss. Yep. And they're like, oh, he might be the best of all time. It's like, man, you got guys that have defended their belt against the best in the world for a decade. His run wasn't long enough. Could have been.
Pierre defended against 3 generations. 3 generations of fighters. He beat the best that they had to offer. Then he took 4 years off and came back.
The thing with lightweight is there hasn't been one of those like long run dominant champs.
The closest thing you've ever seen is BJ Penn and Frankie Edgar.
BJ Penn, Frankie Edgar, Khabib, like
those are the top 3 names at lightweight historically. As far
welterweights are chasing GSP, middleweights are chasing Anderson Silva. Your light heavyweights will always be chasing John Jones. There's a guy at most of those weight classes. There's not a guy I feel like at lightweight.
Not really. There's no clearly defined one because there's too many people at that weight class, right? Like in 5 years, so right now if we were looking at the guys you're actually chasing are Tyron Woodley, George St. Pierre, and Kamaru Usman. And then you could also put in Matt Hughes and Jake Shields. Most people don't think about Jake Shields because most of his work was outside of the UFC.
Strike Force and other organizations.
Mm-hmm. But if you write down their resumes, Jake Shields, up until Kamaru and Tyron, had a very strong argument for the second best welterweight of all time.
It's funny, like, stuff like that reminds me of how young our sport is.
Yeah, man. It's changing the whole game. I'll be back in 4 seconds. 4 seconds.
Yeah.
Right. I can still hear you. There, right. So in the same gym where Ricardo's teaching, you have Frankie Edgar as one of his students. And then you have Eddie Alvarez, who has been the world champion in every single organization he has ever competed in. Right? Like, what? So these are the two dudes that are on the mat with me all the time. And then Ricardo has like 5 medals from ADCC, like 7 medals from the Worlds, and fought for a UFC title when I was like 17. Like, what the fuck is this place? This shit don't make any sense.
And then based on stories you've told me about him, like it sounds like he's a genuinely good man and like welcomed you. Like, this is a dude that's historically significant in our sport. And like, you walk in and he's got a place for you in his heart, like, right away.
And the craziest thing is, the more I got there and I started trying to bring other people, he's not like that. Right? Like, I was like, hey, I got a training partner that trains over here. And he's like, yo, I'm not trying to add anybody to the team. I want to work
just clicked with him, man.
A couple of people. And hey, if they're from Jersey and they haven't found their way here yet, like, they either don't belong here or they'll find their own way. You don't need to bring them. Like, what do you mean? Like, no, don't vouch for them. I'm not interested. Like, they'll figure it out on their own, or they're not going to be here. It's all good. I don't want to work with everybody. I've worked with everybody. I'm done. Like, he's trying to get out of the game. So it was really, really cool that I was able to make that connection. Like, I started going to his regular jiu-jitsu classes, and he was taking time to explain things to me that I was not seeing him take time to explain to anyone else. Like, he would teach a move, and I would have a question for him, and he would spend the next 5 minutes explaining it to me, and then go off to like 3 seconds here, 5 seconds there, 10 seconds here, 10 seconds there, like bounce person, because there's 35 people on the mat. But before he did all of that, he would come over and make sure that I understood what was going on.
He felt the connection with you, man. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm super, super happy for the time that I spent with Ricardo. I canceled my membership recently because we moved down to the base, right? So when we moved, we bought that house, and the things that were important is we have to live in New Jersey because Crystal has to work on the base, right? So we have to live within X amount of time from the base. Now, what's the second most important thing? Training. And then the third thing was training elsewhere, right? So like being able to get to all the other gyms. So we were literally 3 minutes away from 2 major freeways and 10 minutes away from the biggest freeway in all of Jersey. So anywhere I needed to go was
accessible. Yeah.
Yep. Super, super accessible. And that was very important to me. And now we live in bumblefuck nowhere, where if you want to go to Target, it takes 25 minutes. The closest Chase Bank is 25 minutes away. I don't know where the closest auto parts store is. Like, there's the base, and then there's the building. There's like the businesses that surround the base that live off of the base. And then there's bumblefuck nowhere. And then there's towns outside of that. So it's cool. And it's going to be nice, like, business-wise, because I was so close to Ricardo's. And he has made over 50 black belts, right? So when I showed up, he literally didn't need me.
Yep.
Like, when I got the PV, you guys had 5 brains that were good enough to run jiu-jitsu class. So there was absolutely a hole that I could fill. You were like hole that Ricardo's for me to fill. And because I wasn't teaching there, I couldn't generate a student base. I couldn't teach private lessons out of the house. So I was going all sorts of weird routes. Now that I'm on base, there's no gym worth its weight within 20 minutes of here.
You go back to that. Like, you come here, you're a starting all-star basketball player, one of 5 guys on the court. You go to a gym like that and there's 50 choices. That's like a football team. There's way more guys on the field. It's just different. Yeah, good in some ways. I'm sure your game elevated a ton working with all those top level guys. But
completely
this
different,
is good.
completely different person than the last time you watched me train. Completely different. It was a great opportunity, super good experience. But now that there's nobody on base, like as soon as the mask mandate lifts, I'm gonna take over the jiu-jitsu club. I'm gonna start teaching on base. Like I'm already teaching there's a special forces unit here that travels to places that they're not allowed to carry weaponry. So they receive extra hand-to-hand combat training outside of what you would get from like Army combatives, this, that, and another.
Right.
So they put them through like a 6 or an 8 week MMA training class, right? Where they teach them fundamentals of MMA and jiu-jitsu and striking and wrestling and blah, 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 blah. And then at the end, they pancration fight each other. Right? So I started working, they brought me in as a subject matter expert. So now Chris is teaching there like once a week, every Thursday morning. She goes in at like 7 a.m. and teaches them jiu-jitsu for an hour. And then like this week, I was supposed to go in on Wednesday. I was going to get there at 9:30 in the morning, and I probably wouldn't have left till 3 p.m. And we would just teach it the whole time. So that's going to be like a really, really good.
With like dialed in students, they want what you have.
Most of them don't know shit yet.
Yep.
But their job is to learn what I have to offer, figure out how to teach it, and then teach it to people. Like you and I are in a bit of a more unique situation where we teach people who are actually going to use these skills, but their lives don't depend on it.
Right. This is literally discretionary income. This is a hobby for almost everyone.
We've got, like how many martial arts schools are out there where nobody does shit? Right? They're just dicking around. Like it's just a thing they like to do. And if they don't learn good technique, it really might not be the biggest deal in the world.
It's still fun. Right.
Yeah. Right. Like we are lucky enough to work with athletes that want to compete at a relatively, if not the highest level.
Yeah.
But even then, their lives are not on the line.
Have you found that you've modified anything for these guys that we do?
Because I have to change. Like, I don't consider myself a weapons expert. So as soon as you add weapons into the game, I just assume that it's no longer my expertise and that you should find someone else, right? But I will talk about, like, I'm gonna tell them to disengage more than I would anybody who comes to me for jiu-jitsu. I probably won't teach them to disengage. Right. So like, let's say I'm in close guard and I arm drag you and I threaten to take your back. Right. If you're a striker or it's a self-defense scenario, I'm going to tell you to put one hand on the back of their head, one hand on their hip, put your forehead in their armpit, and keep pressure on them until they circle back to their feet and now run. Right. You're going to disengage, get the fuck out of the fight. That's what I'm going to tell them to do. But I wouldn't tell that to someone whose goal was to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Win a gold medal at a jiu-jitsu tournament. Like it's as effective as our martial art is, I think a lot of people get caught in this trap that like, I know how to fight now. It's like, well, do you spar at your gym? Okay. You do spar at your gym. You know how to fight one guy. Do you know what it's like to get in a fight in a room full of people? Like you can't lay on your back endlessly in a room full of people without getting your head stomped on. Like there's when I went through the Helio Gracie black belt test, and it was a lot more, it's just like so much self-defense stuff that we kind of, because Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has become so sporty, and because we're an MMA gym, which is also a sport, as visceral and violent of a sport as it is, Jiu-Jitsu self-defense is different. It's something different. So it was cool to learn that stuff, even though it's not like my passion and not what I want my school to be. Yeah. The hair comb karate chop, my favorite technique
in the whole book. I can't believe Henry yelled at me when I made fun of it. Like, you don't understand. You work with people with trained necks. Those average fucks out there, they don't have trained necks. Go karate chop them. They'll fall asleep. What are you talking about?
On the one hand, goofy, but on the other hand, like, dude, most people, especially in today's era with like the internet, like, they say violent things, but violence shocks people into inaction. The violence of force. Like, if you're not someone that's actually ever been in a fist fight and we meet in public and you say I don't know, something happens where I need to fight you and I karate chop you in the neck, or I just do some violent thing to you, 9 out of 10 make up all my numbers, but 9 out of 10 of them are like, what the fuck?
Yep.
I don't know that he's going to fall down asleep, but
the guy who runs the Ravens program, that's the special forces team here. For all of their weapons training, they look at Krav Maga. By and large, I will disrespect Krav Maga more than any other martial art because you cannot test any of their theories, right? All of their techniques are break his finger, kick him in the dick, gouge out his eyes. Like I can't practice any of those things. So everything we're talking about is theoretical. So I mentioned that to him and he's like, yeah, I agree with all that. The reason that I like Krav Maga is because every time you don't know what to do, they tell you to be as violent as you can possibly imagine and do it immediately.
Yes. And
for someone who has no idea what they're doing, like, okay, I like that theory.
If you took that same mindset and that same theory and applied it to martial arts that actually work, why wouldn't it be better?
Aikido is largely bullshit. That being said, when you make Aikido a competitive martial art, there are a few places that do tournaments of Aikido. It's judo.
Yeah.
Every single technique that Aikido has that works is judo. And the rest of them are bullshit. I spent years learning Aikido, right? And it's one of the few that most people would disrespect. And I'll tell you, no, they actually know more than you think that they know. The problem is they have no idea what they know and what they don't know. So like they introduced me to the idea that you could take someone from a striking situation, put them on the ground, neutralize them, and break one of their limbs. I was taught that at 7 years old, way before I ever learned jiu-jitsu. Now, I did that to one of my buddies the other day. You heard of Dust Dale, the dude in Detroit? No. Dust is Detroit Urban Survival Training.
Oh, yeah. I know who you're talking about. I've seen like the memes. I know who he is.
The dojo, right? He's bullshit.
Yeah.
My buddy was looking at him. He's like, you don't think that technique would work? And I said, yeah, that technique will absolutely work if I don't punch you in the face, or I don't wiggle my toes, or take a step back, or blah, 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 blah. So I showed him an example. I showed him a technique that I learned in Aikido. And he's like, this fucking hurts. This hurts so bad. I was like, yeah, because you went with me every step of the way. And at the end, if you don't comply, I'm going to break your arm.
Right.
You could have done anything to disrupt the whole process.
If you had just fought back, this would have been way harder.
Yep. And I thought when he originally pitched Dust Dale to me, and it was like, have you seen this guy? I was like, yeah, he's bullshit. He's like, no, you haven't. I was like, no, I've never watched him. I've literally never watched him. I don't really intend to because it hurts me that he exists, right?
He's tricked people into believing a sense of safety that's not there.
Exactly, man. Like he's going to get people killed. And he's really good at social media. Really good at social media. I've never seen his videos until this week. He's hilarious. He's an excellent orator, and he's a really, really, really good instructor. And that's a problem.
It's just this is like the traditional martial arts thing. Like, why are these gyms still thriving? And they sell this idea of like making you deadly, and they're selling it to people that don't really want to put in the work, or you know how hard it is to get good at jiu-jitsu. You know how hard it is to be bad at jiu-jitsu. Like you go to the gym. How the guy I got the most respect for? Well, okay, I don't know. I'm just making this up off the top of my head. But how respectable is it? The guy that sucks and keeps coming and gets the absolute shit kicked out of him again and again and again. It was both of us for a long time. And then as I get older, it's now becoming me again. But like,
I was a morbidly obese teenager competing with professional athletes, professional fighters who were 10 years older than me. And I'm a shit talker.
They went hard
while they were fucking me up. Like, that's the reason my jiu-jitsu is not everybody else's jiu-jitsu. Because it didn't matter what you told me was supposed to work. It only mattered what was going to keep me from catching an ass whooping.
Yeah.
One of my first rounds sparring with Corey Anderson, maybe even like my 10th round sparring with him. He's like, are you going to do anything else? I said, no. He's like, what's your plan from here? Stop getting my ass kicked. Like, I got no idea what I'm going to do from here. But I know from right here, you can't keep kicking my ass. So I'm going to keep it here until the referee steps in. Oh, there's no referee? It sounds like we're going to spend a lot of time here until you figure out how to get the fuck out because I don't want to keep getting hit. That's how I learned martial arts, the theory of jiu-jitsu. Survive, defend, attack. Yo, I didn't have offense until I was damn near a brown belt.
Yeah.
But my defense is light years ahead of the average black belt when I was a blue belt.
Because you took so many ass with
I'd have broken everything.
Yeah.
Everything, man. Like my dad grew up in a very, very violent household where someone was likely to be threatened with their life on a daily basis. Okay. Right? Either through hand-to-hand violence or a gun might be pulled on you and your life might end today. So there was a constant threat that he could be in a life-altering scenario. So my dad started studying martial arts when he was like 14, right? 12. Like now, my dad has like, I think he has 2 black belts and 3 brown belts in different martial arts, like, right?
Yeah.
But back in the 80s, when he was doing all this stuff, in the 70s, when he was doing all this stuff, there was no proving ground. It was all theoretical. So I watched my dad grab a man's wrist, bend it, and that man did 2 flips through the air. He twisted his wrist. That man did 2 flips through the air. 2! I watched this. This is a real thing that I witnessed as a child. That martial arts bullshit. I learned plenty of important concepts that help me now. The technical application of Aikido is largely bullshit. And it really, really bothers me that there's people out there still selling that kind of bullshit.
Have you ever grappled with a Japanese jiu-jitsu guy?
I did. There's a Japanese jiu-jitsu school on Brady Street in Milwaukee. It's called Futen Dojo.
Okay.
About a year before I started Brazilian jiu-jitsu, I went there and learned Japanese jiu-jitsu and ninjitsu. And the guy there said that he had experience working with Helio Gracie. So I was like, all right, okay, cool, all right. The Japanese jiu-jitsu is it's kind of a catch-all term. Mm-hmm. It like Japanese jiu-jitsu is here, and then it trickled down into judo over here, and then that trickled down into jiu-jitsu. Like it just gets more and more specialized. Japanese jiu-jitsu has a lot of really, really valuable techniques. The guy that beat Conor McGregor, that everybody with Joe Duffy. Joe Duffy is a Japanese jiu-jitsu black belt. And when you watch him on the ground, he knows his shit. He really does. But they spend a lot of time working on like bending your wrist to get knives out and like shit that doesn't work too. So
I'm a blue belt. When I started running the gym, I'm a blue belt. And this kid comes in one day, guy, I don't know, whatever. And he's got a purple belt on. And he just came in for like a noon class. And I'm like, oh, cool. It's so awesome you're here. Thanks, man. And we get done with class and we're rolling. And this dude has no idea what he's doing. Like, this is the worst purple belt I've ever rolled with. And I'm trying to stay respectful. Like, I still won't insult somebody like that. Like, you know, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know why this guy sucks so bad, but I'm talking to him. I'm like, oh, where did you train before? Who'd you get your purple belt from? Politely. And then he's like, well, I'm actually a Japanese jiu-jitsu purple belt. And I was like, oh. And then I kind of like did a little research and like they learn the same techniques as us, not the same, but basically the same techniques plus the weapon stuff. Mm-hmm. And they're learning to kill. You know, I had a buddy that did it and kind of told me about it a little bit, but they do no practical application. They don't do live stuff. And there's other stuff like that when a lot of the military combatives guys come in, like shit. They know moves.
Million of them.
I'll tell you a funny story. So Rob Coolier used to be my partner and savage jiu-jitsu guy, right? And Rob never got beat by new guys. Like me, I'll let new guys work and whatever, right? Like I'm trying to teach them. Rob kicked the shit out of new guys. And this combatives guy comes in who I have grappled with on his first day, and I know he knows how to do a good, strong, violent kimura. He doesn't know how to set it up. He doesn't know how to get into it. He doesn't know anything about grappling, but he knows technique, and he's a big, strong, powerful guy. And he rolls with Rob, and he kimuras the shit out of him. And Rob taps out, and after class, Rob's like, what the fuck was that? That guy was terrible. But he, like, how did he get me? And I'm like, dude, the combative guys, like, they know the moves but they don't know live practical application, which is an easy way to say they're no good. But bro, they're really good at some of these moves. And if they're strong, powerful athletes and you let yourself get put in the move, like, you're going to get tapped out by them.
They lack the nuance and the context, right? Like, Ricardo has a habit of making fun of people who learn jiu-jitsu from YouTube, right? Yeah. He says, this is the stuff you can't learn in YouTube. And then I told him, like, hey, just so you know, like, I learned all my jiu-jitsu on YouTube and from instructionals. Like, there was no one around me who had the level of technique required to fix the errors I was making. So I'm largely self-taught. And that's not to say that I made this stuff up, but I had to do the research to figure out what this. And if you don't do enough studying, you won't learn anything. You just like Scott Seabright, according to Red Schaefer, Scotty would only research techniques that had a dope name.
That had a dope name?
Yeah. So he got really good at the scorpion crush and other silly shit.
Okay, like, can you shut the door?
All sorts of silly stuff. And like, Scotty's a real good grappler. But the order that he learned things in was completely wrong because he was teaching himself and he thought this was cool stuff. So I'm gonna learn the cool stuff first. And it's just weird. Like, it's not wrong, but it's like my game is designed in the wrong order. My fundamentals are not your fundamentals. Now, I've been doing it long enough that I've made most of the mistakes and I've ironed out a lot of them. But I do a lot of shit that you should not be able to do.
The other thing with like doing this for so long is even if your game is wrong, eventually it becomes a complete game. Not complete like perfect, but you know, even with your wrong stuff or your wrong basics, like, you know so much other stuff that you can make that game work, and you can make it work super effective.
Usually, I know why it's wrong, and I know what the risk is. So I'll walk you down this road that looks wrong to you, and you're going to capitalize on the mistake that I made, but it wasn't a mistake.
It's for intent. Yeah, it's with intent.
I 100% did this on purpose. I didn't mean to do this on purpose 4 years ago, but enough people kicked my ass that I now know exactly what's coming.
I've figured out how to make this work.
Yeah, like, I'm going to continue doing this until you all quit, all of you. But you shouldn't have done that in the first place. Yeah, I know.
That's how my deep half guard game got developed. Like, people just kept passing my half guard, and I'm like, you know, I just need a solution that's like, my half guard's almost passed. What do I do now? Like, oh, deep half guard, and then I get good at it, and I win. I think I win a couple purple belt tournaments, and I'm like, fuck yeah. See, it's not because my half guard was bad and kept getting passed. It was because intentionally, I just wanted to get deeper into this.
Yep. They used to ban me from asking Pedro Sauer questions, right? Because I was a teenager and like, because I'm weird, right? So I asked weird questions. So I went and I asked, like, hey, when I roll with this specific person, he responds to this specific technique in this specific way. What do I do? And he said that Jake is gone and that I should just keep babbling until he gets back. Hello, 3 viewers. There's people looking at this shit. Good to see you. I think Jake's going to be back in like 4 seconds. I don't know what happened. He got disconnected. There he is. I'm going to add him right back to the stream. Hey, look, we found Jake Klipp. El Jefe's back.
All right. I'm trying to get my microphone I can't hear.
You can't hear? I can put on my headphones and then you'll have I'll have better volume because I'll have like a mic right here.
Can you try? Let me just see.
Yeah.
Try one.
Yep. Actually, I think there's just a way to turn up my mic sensitivity. Cam and mic audio. Automatically adjust mic volume? Nah, mic volume 200. What about now?
Oh my God, it's so much better, dude.
Yeah, I literally just doubled my audio. I saw you doing this thing constantly, but you do this in regular life, so I didn't know how much.
Yeah, well, I can't hear on one side. And so I'm like, what the fuck is he saying? All right. Okay. I got it. Now I can sit back comfortable.
Perfect. So I went to ask Pedro, like,
Star questions.
Super niche question. Like, hey, when Bacon does this, when I do this, Bacon does this. What do I do about that? And he said, take 2 steps back and do something else. And in my head, I said, go fuck yourself. That's not what I asked you.
Like, answer my question.
Yeah, he said, do something else. No, I need to go here and figure out what I do about this. I'm not here for the path of least resistance. I'm here to learn. Retrospectively, I now
remember being at some of those seminars
from asking questions. But in the moment, I was so confused. What do you mean I can't ask the grandmaster the answer to my problems?
I remember being at some of those seminars.
Exactly. And then one time I got yelled at because he called me out to do a demonstration, and like it involved me sweeping him. So I swept him. And then they pulled me to the side after, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why would you do that to a 50-year-old man? I was like, I was super gentle. What are you talking about? What was your introduction to combat?
Okay, so my introduction to combat, we have plenty of time. This will be a long-winded answer. So I got in my first fight at school, and I think I was in like 4th grade, and I called a 5th grader a name, and he grabbed me and threw me on the ground, and I think I was like pulling his hair and crying while he beat me up. So very convincingly lost my first fight. I got a detention. I was not a natural fighter. I wrestled since I was 5 years old, and now that I'm older and wiser, wrestling is combat. I didn't know it at the time, but I never put 2 and 2 together that all of my years of wrestling made me good at fighting. As a kid, I didn't know it. I had like confidence problems as a kid. I got picked on all the way through high school. I enlisted in the Marines when I was 17. I knew I was a tough guy, but I needed to prove it to myself and everyone else. So I enlisted in the Marines, and I'm in the Marine Reserves. And so I get in that one fight back in elementary school. I get all the way through high school, and I'm actively wrestling, which again, now I count as combat, but at the time I didn't. I come out of basic, and I've got a shaved head, and I used to have long hair, like longer than your hair is. And I moved to a new school. So I'm a reservist. I moved to Milwaukee. I go to a new school, and it was like a restart. And they talk about kids going to college. Right? What's that?
You're from Middleton, right?
Yep, Middleton.
Middleton Wrestling. There's that.
This is a 26-year-old sweatshirt from wrestling.
Fit you?
I bought big back then. You remember how kids wore clothes back when I was a kid, like baggy and Jinko jeans and all that. Okay. So I get to college, and now I'm around all new people. Like, they don't know that I got picked on all the time, and they don't know that I'm a pussy, right? Which is what I think in my head about myself. Yep. And I got the shaved head, and I'm in good shape, and everyone thinks I'm this tough guy. And I'm going to parties, and I'm at a party, and my buddies, the party's at my buddy's house, and they're like, Klipp. Everyone calls me Klipp. Klipp, we need you to throw this guy out. I think he like stole something. I don't remember what happened. And I got a great poker face. Like, I never break character. My face is like stone cold killer. But in my brain, I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, these guys all think I'm tough. But I'm a pussy. Like, they don't know I'm a pussy. Mm-hmm. And this is my first, it's not even really a fight, but it's my first fight since like 3rd grade. And so I walk up to this guy, and I'm like, get the fuck out of here. And I grab him and smash him against the wall and drag him up and throw him out of the house. And it's that violence of force. Like, I came at him and got super physical, and he was a guy that had no expectation of that ever happening to him in his life. And he freezes and whatever. I toss him out of the house on his head, and I get back inside, and everyone's like, dude, Klipp, you're the fucking man. And I'm thinking in my head, like, not you're the fucking man. I'm thinking they didn't realize I'm a pussy. Like, that's it. They just don't know. They still don't know that I'm actually a pussy. And this goes on throughout my freshman year of college. I'm I'm the shaved head I'm the Marine. And I wrestled on the UWM club team, and we'd go out, and anytime someone fucked around, Klipp, we need you to go fuck this guy up. And just so they didn't find out I was a pussy, I'd go fuck up whoever they told me to. And I get all the way to the end of my freshman year, and I'm talking to an older, he's like 21, but he's one of the older guys that hangs out with our group once in a while. And he says something about me being a tough guy. And I tell him, I'm like, no, bro, I'm actually not that, I'm not a tough guy. Like, I'm only just doing this so you guys don't realize, like, I'm a pussy who's scared all the time. And he's like, how many fights have you been in? And I'm like, I don't know. I couldn't remember, 15, something like that, right? Like, I'm trying to count up the number of times that I had these fights. And he goes, that's 15 more than I've ever been in my life. And this is like a tough dude in my mind. Like, this dude's not a pussy to me. And he said that, and I'm like, oh shit. And I do this like immediate calculation in my head, like, you're not a pussy, and you've never been in a fight, and I've been in a ton of fights. I think I'm not a pussy. Like, like the little light bulb goes off. Like, you might not be a pussy. And then I think about it a little more. I'm like, I actually think I kind of liked it. Like,
okay,
fighting guys. Like, I think I liked that. And so it was one conversation, and I'm wearing a mask. I'm not telling this dude, like, what I'm telling you right now, I'm not speaking out loud. Those calculations happen immediately in my brain, and all of a sudden, on the spot, like, I'm a tough guy now. And so those are just like little house party fights and bar fights. It's not, nothing really at stake in those. I'll keep answering the question because there's a couple different types of combat, right? So I'm in the Marines. They teach you all kinds of cool stuff. But it's not. I joined the Marine Corps in 1999. We're at peace. So how old are you, Josh?
I'm 30. So
9/11 happened when you were 8 years old. 10 years old. Grade. So you have memory of America not at war, but it's childhood memory, right? Yeah. All of your mature adult memory, we've been at war. I'm not. I went into the Marine Corps, and my parents had to sign off on me joining when I was 17, and we had been at peace for like 25 years. I don't know. I want to go back as far as I need to, but we're not going to war. Like, you do this, poor kids do it to pay for college, and I just want to, like, toughen myself up a little bit. And all of a sudden, like, oh fuck, like, we're at war. So all these guys that enlist in the military after 9/11 get a medal. What the hell is it called in the Marines? It might be all services. It doesn't matter, but they got some like medal for signing up, and us old salty dogs are like, these fucking pussies, like, they just got a medal for enlisting. They enlisted knowing they could go to war. We enlisted knowing we weren't going to war. It's different. So war breaks out. 2004, I get the call that we're going to deploy. We're going to go to Iraq. They don't give us. Yep. No. So I enlisted in 99. I went to boot camp 6 days after I graduated high school in 2000. So I've been in for 4 years. Okay. We deploy June 1st of 2004. And we end up doing a tour in Iraq. Mahmadiyya, Yusufiyya, Lutafiyya is an area near Baghdad. And I see another version of combat, shooting at people that are shooting back, right? Like dead bodies and dead friends. And
you were in firefights?
War. I was in firefights.
Okay.
And that was different. That was different too. How do you describe war? All kinds of different ways. 98% the most boring thing you've ever done in your whole life. 1% super sad because, like I said, I lost some friends. And then 1% the most thrilling, exhilarating. You know how it feels to win an MMA fight?
Yeah.
I haven't bungee jumped and I haven't jumped out of airplanes, but I imagine the thrill is
not even close. Nope.
I imagine it's similar, right? Okay, I don't know.
It's adrenaline, but it's not even close.
Okay, the adrenaline and the MMA rush of winning a fight is similar,
Pitiful.
but it's like a shadow
Yeah.
of winning a firefight or getting through a firefight. So getting through that, you hear stories of these guys that like he's done 9 deployments and he's gone 12 times on deployment. And I know plenty of people that have done deployments where they saw no combat and, you know, they still get all the pats on the back, which they should. Sometimes they pat themselves on the back, and it's whatever. I don't care. Be proud of yourself. We used to call them fob rats, but fobbits is a better name. It's fine. Be proud of yourself because we couldn't fight in war without plenty of people like that. But the war junkies, the ones that were really over there, like fighting, pulling triggers, sounds like maybe some of the guys you work with. I get it. I don't want to be one. I get it. That surge is unlike anything else.
My dad was in the military. Everybody on my dad's side of the family was in the military. He had a brief stint in the army and then got himself in trouble before he even was able to really do stuff. So then a couple years later, he went into the Navy, right? His CO in the Navy said, "Moody, in a time of war, you would be my greatest soldier. But we are at a time of peace. So you are a crazy motherfucker."
We're transitioning to that now. You know, with social media, you can follow all kinds of different groups. And I keep up with some military stuff. I'm not big, you know, I don't bang the drum super hard and talk about it all the time. But you just see our military is transitioning over to a peacetime military. And it's some guys, you know, bitch and complain about it. This is the natural cycle. Like a peacetime military is different than a wartime military. Not better, not worse. We don't want to be at war. So everyone that's complaining about, oh, this is a peacetime military and it's a bunch of pussies and it's bullshit. It's like, yeah, but that means we won, or at least we're not at war anymore. Like, didn't we all want this?
There's no such thing as a bad peace, and there's no such thing as a good war.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Damn, that's crazy that you the idea of joining the military to me is always like, okay, you're going to go over and you're going to be in firefights. Like, I actually wanted to do it, but only because I wanted to do boot camp. And I would not have made it through boot camp. I would have been court-martialed before basic was over, 100%. I don't listen well, and if you yell at me, I'm going to yell back. It wouldn't have gone well. I would have gotten beaten with socks. All sorts of horrible shit would have happened to me that didn't need to happen. But the idea was always there. Like, yeah, if you do this, you're going to go shoot at someone, and someone's going to shoot at you. So the concept that you joined, and we're like, why would I? No, like that's not a thing that happens right now. And then all of a sudden they were like, yo, go shoot people. Like, what? What do you mean? This is not what I signed up for.
So that's kind of like, okay, so it's like a characterized version, right? It's you're 18 and they sell you super hard at boot camp on like, you're a killer now. And like, I want it. Like, send me to war. Let me kill bad guys. Like you want it. It's just the mindset when you enlisted back then. You didn't have to factor in, I'm going to war. It wasn't, I don't want to. It just wasn't like you said, right now, if you had enlisted at 18, you would have done it with the mindset of like, I am going to war. When I enlisted at 18, it wasn't, I don't want to go to war. It was, there is no war. Like I'm not doing this for that. That's not really a part of the calculation. And then when 9/11 happens, we're all gung ho, like, let us at them. Like whoever it was, let us at them.
Then it's still another 3 years before they actually let you go.
Oh my God, man. So 9/11 happens. I have a early morning psychology discussion. I'm sitting down in a room with 15 kids, and someone pokes their head in. They're like, someone crashed an airplane into one of the World Trade Centers. And we're all like, oh, damn. You know, we don't know exactly what that meant. A little airplane, I don't know. And like, however many minutes later, that was at the beginning. And then I don't know if it was the end of the discussion, whatever. Someone comes in and they're like, they just flew another plane in. This was on purpose. And I got up and picked up my stuff. And like instantly I'm like, oh, someone just attacked the United States. And I went back to my room and turned on the news. And, you can see the buildings burning. And, you can wash your hands and then you can eat your lunch, but you have to do it out at the table, okay? Yeah. And my gunnery sergeant calls me and he's like, we don't know where we're going, but we're going. Pack your shit. And I'm like, oh, okay. You know, I'm 18. I'm a freshman in college. No. 2001. I'm 19. I'm a sophomore in college. And I pack all my shit. And I got buddies that like dropped out of school. I got buddies that quit their job. Like they told us we're going. Like get your affairs in order. We're leaving. And they kept doing it. We didn't go in the first wave. And then in 2003, when Bush decided we were going to go invade Iraq.
Oh, yeah, because it was just Afghanistan in the beginning. This is like, you didn't even get sent to Afghanistan. You didn't even get sent for some 9/11 shit. Bro, you got sent to some totally different shit.
We got sent to some weapons of mass destruction bullshit. No, we did get sent. We got sent to a place full of bad guys. So, you know, but yeah, we got sent to. They made up shit to win the next election, and I don't know if I want to talk about all that, but I hate politicians. Anyway, 2003. 2003, we go to Iraq. I'm still watching the news. Now I'm in school and I'm still working and all that. But it was 2004. I'm actually working at the UWM Children's Center at the daycare. And I just put a bunch of kids down for nap. And the phone rings in the room, which is rare. And I go into the phone and it's the staff sergeant calling for me, which usually it's like the office is calling to let us know a parent called a kid in sick, or I've never had a person call this phone. It's always someone that works. I mean, I've never had an outside person call. The staff sergeant calls me. Staff sergeant Moore. I think it was Moore. He's like, is this Klipp? I was like, yeah. He's like, this is to officially inform you, blah, blah, blah. There's a script they read, and like, you're going to war. And I like, okay, you're like, ready to go. Roger that, staff sergeant. I hang up the phone. I'm at a daycare. With my group was 18 months to 3 years old. I go sit down and I'm playing with blocks with a kid. I don't say anything to anybody. I'm like playing with blocks with this little kid. And then another teacher comes in and I was like, hey, can you take over for me? She was like, sure, what's wrong? And I was like, I just got a call that I'm going to be deployed to Iraq and I got to go take care of some stuff. And they were like, oh my God. And I'm sitting here playing with this little kid for like 5 or 10 minutes, like building with blocks and trains and trying to process at 19, like what I'm about to go do. No, this is 24, so I'm not 19. I'm older than that. But anyway, you know, you're still a dipshit kid. Yeah, man, it was different. Glad I did it. Wouldn't do it again.
Why wouldn't you do it again?
They offered. I don't want to go back. Like, once was enough. I didn't sign up for the military to serve my country. I wasn't afraid of going to war. I signed up to prove to myself I was a tough guy. I did it. While I was in, let me at the bad guys. I did it. Once was enough. I don't need to do it again.
Yeah, that's not what I mean. Okay, so what I heard when you said you wouldn't do it again was like start your life over.
Oh,
would you? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd try to do everything I could to make sure I had my kids, the same kids. So yeah, you know, you have that daydream once in a while. Like, what if I woke up and I could go be a high school wrestler again and be better at it? And like, I got kids now, and all I can think about is like this mathematical improbability of ever having the same 2 kids. So I don't know. I try to do everything the same.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. So you wouldn't go for round 2. It's not that you wouldn't sign up for round 1 again.
Yeah, I'm really glad I did it. And I wouldn't, I wouldn't change it. I wasn't going back. They offered promotions. They offered different jobs. That was good.
Yo, they do that shit all the time. Nobody wants to stay in, right? So there's this whole like, they're changing a whole bunch of rules in the military. I don't know shit about the military. I don't speak military. Even though I live on a military base, I am as disconnected from the military as you can possibly be. Some of that's on accident. Some of that's on purpose. And some of that is just I have no fucking clue what's going on. All right. They're constantly making little changes here and there because nobody wants to stick around. So they're changing like fundamental rules in order to encourage people to be willing to stay. Like,
yeah, this is like I was talking about. A bunch of the old heads are complaining about the new peacetime military stuff, and it's like, well, like things change. Like they don't have the same objective anymore. The objective used to be to go win a war, which you've never defined what winning meant. And now the objective is we don't know. We don't know what the objective is.
I know a bunch of people got beards and shit now. Like they got the same beard I do. And I'm like, how? I thought you had to be clean shaven. They're like, nah. I went to a doctor. The doctor said I shouldn't shave every day. I stepped into the military. I get to have a beard. What the fuck is this?
It's awesome. It's awesome.
Oh, yeah, good for them. They need to change some of this stuff. But as an outsider, I'm like, well, I thought that how do you, all the time.
Bullshit.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Bullshit.
Everything. Every single thing.
Bullshit.
It's
all
ridiculous.
Right, so let's skip forward. So I get out of the military, 2006. I get out. I'm playing football. I'm lifting weights, and I'm fighting people at bars all the time. Fighting people and chasing girls. Like this is what I like to do in my 20s. And this is how I met Zak. One of my best friends was named Steve Mix. Steve played football with Zak in high school. We all work in the bar industry downtown. And I meet Zak one night. I think he's bartending, and we connect. We play a couple football games together. But now he's a part of my like going out and getting rowdy crew. And then 2008. In 2008, Andrea, who's my wife at the time, is my girlfriend. We lived together. Her little brother.
Were either of you training? Were you or Zak training yet?
Nope.
All right.
Nope. Lifting weights, fighting people in bars, chasing girls, and I go to work. Like this is my routine. And so 2008, Andrea's little brother is going to come stay with us for a week. I don't know if it's spring break or if he got kicked out of school or what the deal was, but he's going to come stay with us for a week. And I'm going to take him to lift weights with me in the morning. I worked at US Bank at the time. I had like a real grown-up job. I worked in HR and payroll. And I'm going to go lift weights in the morning, and I'll take Donnie with me. And then I go to work at the bank all day. And then Andrea's like, can you do something? She wanted me to kind of like be a male role model type of thing with her little brother and, come hang out. Cool. So I got to find something for us to do. And I knew I had wanted to do jiu-jitsu or check it out. I knew jiu-jitsu was like wrestling, but in the UFC, like it actually tapped people out, right? Like I'd watched UFC tapes and stuff when I was a kid and watched it when it was on TV. And working out at the WAC, there was a personal trainer there, Asian dude named Al, and Al taught Taekwondo classes at the WAC. And I asked Al, and I was like, hey, do you know anything about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? And he goes, I know if you want to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Milwaukee, you go see Henry Matamoros. And I was like, okay, that was a good enough referral for me. So I Google it. Henry's website has mention this ad for 1 free week. And I was like, oh, great. Donnie's here for a week. I'll get a free week with Donnie, and then I'm a great male role model, right? Okay. So I call Henry. I'm like, hey, I'm calling about the free week of classes. And yeah, okay, man, cool. Just come to the gym. I'm like, okay, do I need to print the coupon? No, I don't care, man. I was like, okay, my girlfriend's little brother is with me. Okay, man, you just signed the waiver. Like, we're good. I'm like, okay, that's it. All right, cool. So now I have a plan for Donnie for the week. I'm like this great guy. And we go to Henry's the first night, and I don't know what to expect. So remember, I wrestled. I'm like bar fighting. I'm a macho tough guy. I expect people are going to try to fight me. Not fight, but like whatever jiu-jitsu is, like this is going to be rough, rowdy, not friendly. This is going to be like going into a strange wrestling room. Like these guys are going to come at me and try to kick my ass. And I'm built, I'm bald, I look tough. And I come in and
like this at this point, right?
Say it again.
You were like 250 and jacked at this point or something, weren't you?
235 and just big as shit.
Yeah.
And Henry's sitting at his desk, and he's got this long hair over his face, and he's not a particularly friendly looking dude. I'm like, hey, I called about the ad. He's like, okay, man, you signed the waiver, read the rules on the wall, go on the mat. And I'm like, okay. And I like walk over, I read these rules, and he's got, I don't remember what all of his rules are. But then Donnie and I go and sit down on the mat, and it's all, it's Ryan Williams is there, Nemo's there, Sheldon's there, Omar's there, I think Levi Lennon's there. I don't know who any of these people are at the time, but now like these are, Milwaukee OGs. And
Levi Lennon was training already at that point?
Yeah, he was a purple
Him
belt when I
and
started.
his brothers are some serious motherfuckers.
Bro,
and nobody know about them, but like they are fucking good.
Noon class used to be Zach and I would show up and Levi would just beat the shit out of us. And it pissed me off because he'd always do the same thing. And I'm like, bro, you're a purple belt and I suck. Like, I'm a white belt. Like, aren't there other moves, Like, do those moves. But he wouldn't. He would just keep doing the same fucking move until 2 weeks later I'd figure out how to stop him. And then he'd do some other brutal beat the fuck out of me move. He did not. And then like me and you roll with someone, you kick the absolute shit out of him, you can still be friendly with him. Like, you and I know how to. I can beat the absolute fuck out of a white belt and still make him feel good about himself afterwards. Levi had none of that. It was like,
not interested.
Beat the fuck out of you, get up, walk around, go beat the fuck out of Zach. And like an hour would go by of this, and Zach and I would look at each other like, dude, what the fuck? But that was Levi, man. He was really good and really brutal. And over time, learned a ton from him. Learned a ton from those ass beatings. But yeah, man. So first night of class, I'm sitting there on the mats, kind of looking around. I'm not mean mugging, but I'm also not I'm not no bitch. Like, if someone comes at me, I'm gonna come at him, right? Like, I'm just ready for whatever. I'm not a pussy. I believe I'm not a pussy at this point. And Ryan Williams is telling a story about who was the heavyweight champ, Tim Sylvia. He's telling a story about meeting Tim Sylvia and how he wanted to take a picture with Tim Sylvia. And I'm thinking, like, I think Tim Sylvia sucks. Like, I know he doesn't suck, but unathletic. I don't think he's that good. Like, as a fan, I think he sucks as a heavyweight champion.
I heard when Tim Sylvia started, he literally could not walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. Like, everybody talks about that as some bullshit. I hear that story was quite literally true with Tim Sylvia. He's that uncoordinated and somehow made the shit work.
So Matt Hughes is awesome, and Matt Hughes is a wrestler, and Jake Klipp's a wrestler, and Tim Sylvia is awkward and unathletic. And here's Ryan Williams talking about getting a picture with Tim Sylvia. And I'm like, these guys are fucking dorks. They don't know what they're talking about. And then Ryan Williams' story is, as he's setting up to take the picture, he turns to Tim Sylvia and he's like, hey, Sylvia, you fucking suck. And then he ran out of the bar. And then I'm like, oh, like, these are my people. Like, we all do think the same guy sucks. And then we have our class, and I get the shit stomped out of me, of course. And I'm Moody. No one kicks the shit out of me at this point in my life, right? Like, I'm a 26-year-old Superman. I lose fights, but no one kicks the shit out of me, in these little bar fights I get into.
Yep.
I get the shit kicked out of me. And I have an ego, but not at this. And it started day one. I get the shit kicked out of me, and I'm not like, what the fuck? I'm like, what the fuck? And after day one of jiu-jitsu, I never picked another bar fight. I bounced, so sometimes I'd have to like throw a guy out. I never got into another bar fight.
Why?
I thought about it after the fact. Fighting people out at bars to me was my test of manhood, my macho test to myself. Am I man enough? Am I man enough? Am I man enough? I found a room full of people I could get that same test in, and they were all better than me. I was the worst guy in the room, and I instantly recognized it, and I no longer cared about being the best bar fighter. I only wanted to be the best guy in that room. This is the only test of manhood. I care about winning, and it's going to take time, and I have time. I'm 26. I can do this for the next 60 years. I've got time to be the best guy in this room. And I recognized it day one. And Andrea said, huge change in you as soon as you started jiu-jitsu. You stopped. Like, I'd come home with blood on me, usually not mine, sometimes mine. Like, I was an asshole. I wasn't like a good guy, like I was a prick. I wouldn't like beat up scrubs, because like I said, it was a test of manhood. I'd look for the other tough guy in the bar, and like, that's the guy I want to fight. And I go into this room of, I wouldn't fight any of these people if we were at the bar, because none of them look like they'd be the toughest guy in the bar. You know, Omar. Do you know Nemo?
That's the only person on the list I didn't know.
David, I think you say his last name, Tekla, a black belt. He has a CrossFit and Jiu-Jitsu gym I think it's in West Dallas. You know, Sheldon, who you rolled with, he's a fucking killer. But like, in my mind, like, this guy, you know, I don't know, he just didn't look like.
He's goofy and chunky, and he's a doctor now.
Goofy, chunky Dr. Sheldon.
Whoa. Like,
okay.
Yeah.
So I'm in this room of like people that never would have dawned on me as being the toughest guy in the bar. And I'm like, my paradigm shifted. I was like, oh, fuck. Like, this is a room worthy of trying to win. And I recognized at night one, I'm like, where do I get a gi? I want to wear a gi. And they're like telling me where Combat Corner is out on Greenfield. And so I drive right. I'm like, is it open? They're like, I don't know. I drive there. I catch Dan LaSavage 2 minutes before he closes the door. I walk in. I'm like, I went to my first jiu-jitsu class tonight. I need a gi. I'm in. And he's like laughing. He's like, we just got blue gis. We've never had blue gis before. And I'm like, okay, am I allowed to wear them? Like, I don't know what the rule is. I'm like, am I going to get in trouble for having a blue gi? Everyone had a white one on. He's like, no, it should be fine. I was like, all right, man, if you say so. So I buy myself a blue gi. I go home to Andrea, to our apartment with Donnie. Donnie had fun too. And Andrea's like, how was it? I'm like, it's the most amazing thing I've ever done in my life. And she's like, what? And like, I'm telling her about it. And I tell her that, like, this is a room full of dorks who killed me. They're not all dorks. Like, they're great guys. And they don't all look like.
Most of them are dorks.
Most of them are dorks.
That's why they got good at this. If they weren't dorks up here, they wouldn't be able to get good at it. You've never met an idiot who's good at jiu-jitsu. You've met plenty of idiots who are good at fighting. You've never met an idiot who's good at jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, that's a good point. So we're telling her all about jiu-jitsu, and she's like, wow, that sounds really great. And she turns to Donnie and she's like, and you're in your prime, like you could get really good at this. And I'm like, I'm 26. I've got like 10 prime years in front of me. Why are you talking to him like that? And I go back to Henry's the next day. I've got my blue gi on. The guys think it's awesome that I'm like, you don't know what like you know what it's like when the big weightlifter comes in, the big tough macho weightlifter comes in and gets his ass kicked. I don't know what percentage of them are like, teach me more, and what percentage are like, this is fucking gay, and leave. I come back and they're like, oh, you're here. Like, not only am I here, I bought myself a new gi. Can I wear blue? And they're like, yes, you can. You can wear that blue gi. And then Andrea came and shot like a little cell phone video a couple weeks later. And you know, when the girlfriend shows up for the first time, everyone like turns it up to a 10 and beats your ass even worse. And she's showing me this video and she's like, you look like a big blueberry with a bunch of spinning monkeys kicking your ass. Oh my God. Spinning white monkeys, because they're all wearing their white gis. And that was how I got into jiu-jitsu. That was 2008. Zach started a year later, so we know each other. We're in the bar scene. We're in the go out and get in fight scene. And
so you brought Zach to Henry's?
So I didn't bring. We weren't like, we were cool. We weren't like
best friends yet.
Yeah. But I had been talking about it when we would all go out. I'm talking about like, hey, I'm doing jiu-jitsu. It's fucking awesome. And so Zach, a year later, his story is his story, and he'll tell it. But he wants to get into jiu-jitsu, and he knows me, and I've told him about Henry's, and he's like, okay, I got to go to Henry's place. That's where I got to go because my guy Jake, that was the referral, and so Zach comes in a year later, and within the first week, something like that, Henry comes over to me, and so one of the things I recognize is Henry's got what I think of as he's got his dogs, right? Like his attack dogs. And I don't know how it works, but I know I want to be one. Levi is one of his attack dogs. Jose Rodriguez is one of his attack dogs. He's got dogs.
I know Jose Rodriguez. He fucked me up a lot of times as a kid.
Yeah, me too. And I'll tell you a super funny Jose story if I remember. I want to be one of the dogs. I don't know how it works, but I know that's something I want. And so Henry comes up to me and I'm about a year in, and he's like, Jake, you know your buddy Zach? I was like, yeah. He's like, when he comes in and class ends, I want you to roll with him first, and I want you to kick his ass, and I want you to tap him out every time, and he will never tap you out. And I was like, yes, like first assignment, right? So that's how Zach's introduction is like, this is probably one of the reasons he and I are so tight now, is I'd always just grab him first, and then I never told him or anything, but like me and Henry told me, and so I'm at 100 when I roll with Zach.
Everything you could to fuck Zach up.
And we're big as shit, and we're rough. And like,
was Zach like 230 at this time too?
220, 225.
Okay.
And a better athlete than me. We're both big.
Yeah. He's super athletic.
And the mats would, like, everyone would move over to the other half of the mat. Organic.
You guys are like over here, then you're over here.
Hey, you know what?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what it's like. We're going.
Yep.
We're smashing on walls, and like, now we train against the wall. You didn't train against the wall back then. If you touch the wall, everyone kind of moves 6 feet away and you reset. Nope, not me and Zach. We're like beating the shit out of each other against walls. Like, we're going for it.
Bacon used to drag people over to the wall.
What's that?
Bacon used to drag people over to the wall in the middle of the round and then laugh at them while they were helpless.
Everywhere doesn't do it. You know, like, you go to jiu-jitsu schools, and when you get close to the wall.
Yeah, no. Nobody else did this. That's why I'm calling this out. Because Luke Summerfield would be in the middle of the field, borderline kicking his ass, or at least holding his own. And then Bacon would drag him over to the wall, put his head against the wall, and now Luke was a helpless little girl. And there was and he would sit there and bitch and moan about it. And he's like, well, then move. Just don't be against the wall. Don't let me do this shit to you.
I'm over at Primal recently. Do you know Mahmoud from 360?
Maybe, but not offhand.
I can't remember if
he used to be at Nova. He was one of the Nova kids forever, right?
I'm not sure, but he's like
with the girl, Joanna. He was like, yeah. I think I know who you're talking about.
Mock is young and excellent, right? Like, I don't know if he won worlds as a purple belt, or I think he won it as a blue belt. Dude, bro, he's like, you know, he's that next generation of world champs.
Good.
And I don't know who he is. And we're over at Primal for an open mat. I think I'm trying to get Montel some work. And this kid is like, hey, do you want to roll? I was like, yeah, sure, man. We start to roll, and I'm like, oh, fuck, like, this kid's really good. And bro, like, I'm not 28 anymore. Like, this was a couple years ago. I think I'm 38. And I'm a black belt. I know jiu-jitsu. This kid is like, oh, fuck, you're special. I'm going to get fucked up. So I drag him over the wall and pin him against it, and then spend 5 minutes of, like, wall jiu-jitsu. And we get done, and he was like, no one's done that to me before. I'm like, I had to. Like, Mark, you're really good. Like, I had to. But, yeah, no, I get it.
You did that to me on two separate occasions. You have put me in positions where I was literally helpless. The first time was like the day of one of my fights, right? I'm in bed under the covers, and you jumped on the bed and mounted me while I'm still under the covers. So effectively, there's a blanket strapping me to the ground, and I'm trying to use regular jiu-jitsu to try and get out of the mountain. I'm like, what the fuck is happening to me right now? And then there was another day, I was in the middle of the Shark Tank, and it was going really, really well. And then you dragged me over to the wall, and I just couldn't move at all. Like, there was just nothing, none of the things. And afterwards, you're like, yeah, none of that shit works against the wall. Like, I didn't beat you with anything real. I didn't do any stuff that you didn't know how to do. None of that shit works against the wall. Motherfucker.
Man, it's just different. Like, I think it's one of our, it's one of our assets as a team is we're very comfortable near the wall in any position. Like, we make sure our guys, even if you get put there in one of those, I'm in an awful position, you've been there in the gym, and like, I have answers. Maybe I still lose, but like, we're just always comfortable near the wall.
A bantamweight made me throw up after 5 minutes of wall work the other day.
What's that?
A UFC bantamweight made me throw up after less than 5 minutes of wall work the other day.
Fuck.
Yeah, he's like, he grabbed me. He's like, let's do jiu-jitsu. I was like, all right, let's do jiu-jitsu. We're going to do it against the wall. So I started with, like, he's sitting against the wall, straight legs. I started around his hips like a double leg.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what he did to get out. He's like, okay, now you go down. And then he proceeded to fuck me up. And afterwards, I was like, I'm gonna go puke real quick, and he starts laughing. Timur Valiev's a motherfucker. He's real good. I forget he was fighting.
Yeah.
He's fighting a couple of weeks. He's really good. Really.
Yeah.
He's one of the dudes that trains at Ricardo's like 4 months out of the year, 6 months out of the year. Timur is in Jersey training, and then he does a couple months in Vegas at like Extreme Couture or Syndicate, and then he does a couple of months back in Dagestan at Dagestan Fighter Gym or whatever it's called.
Okay.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine it. Like, what did you just, it was like, I didn't even know I was working that hard. I had I was not winning, but like, I was okay. And then as soon as the round was over, like, oh, no, you weren't okay. You were never okay at any moment.
Do you know where my top game against the wall came from?
Nope. Where'd it come from?
I can take it to a moment where, sorry, there's 2 moments. So, Zak has a fight. So we start off, Pura Vida starts off 2010. We win our first 10 fights in a row. We think we're like invincible, right? Like MMA fights, kickboxing. We're winning everything, bro. We go to tournaments with 7 guys and we're like taking 3rd in the team trophy, and there's like 30 or 40 gyms there. Like we think we're awesome. Hubris. I just actually had a talk with the team on Saturday about the difference between confidence and hubris. We have hubris. We put Rob into a pro debut against a 3-1 pro named Jordan Parsons. You know who he is?
I know the name, but I don't know who he is.
He passed away. He was in a motorcycle accident and he passed away. But he was I think he was 10-1 in Bellator. He died a couple years ago. So Rob Cougar pro debuts against this 3-1 kid. Adam Vanderveen fights Will Dickey the same night.
I know that name.
Those 2 fight up at Combat USA, and we take Zak down to XFO the same night. So we are so amazing as a team. Adam and Rob can corner each other in pro fights, and I'll corner Zak down in Illinois same night. Adam fights first and gets beat. He gets 10 bones in his face broken. Will mounts him all 3 rounds and just elbows him all 3 rounds. It's like a violent beating. Adam has to go to the hospital.
Yep.
Adam has to go to the hospital afterwards.
Oh, now Rob doesn't have a coach.
Rob has no corner, and just watch Vanderveen get fucking savaged. And Vanderveen beats all our ass in practice. Like, that's our coach at that time. And Rob goes out and he loses his fight. Mm-hmm. And I get a call. I can't remember who was with him that called me. But I get a call 60 seconds before Zak walks out for his fight. They both lost. And I hang up the phone and keep my poker face on. And I'm not going to say a word. You know, like, I'm not going to fuck up Zak's energy. It's me. Henry met up with us down in Illinois. He was coaching down at Jeff Kearns at the time. And Eric Alvarez, who taught some kickboxing at our gym. We're going to corner Zak. Zak is a white belt. He's fighting a brown belt slugging wrestler. He's fighting himself in 10 years.
Oh, fuck. That's a terrible matchup. What were you thinking?
They were like the same dude, except this other guy was a brown belt and Zak was a better athlete and younger. Dale Bowser, I think his name was. Anyway, so they're slugging against the fence, and then Zak gets a takedown against the fence in the first round, and the first round ends, and I get in the cage, and Henry's telling Zak, take him down away from the wall so you can use jiu-jitsu. And Zak looks at me, and like, we're now, like, we have like nonverbal communication, and in the moment he like looks at me, like, we both know what Henry just said was wrong. We don't exactly know why. But I go, no, put him on the wall. Use the fence to shut down his guard. Beat his ass right against the fence. And Zak's like, okay. So this is where like the concept of using a fence to slow down someone's jiu-jitsu started with me. Mm-hmm. Zak wins the fight doing that. The fight ends. And then I turn and I tell Henry and Eric that Rob and Adam both lost. And they're like, holy shit. Like, when'd you find out? I'm like, a minute before we walked out. Holy fuck, whatever. Tangent. Henry tells me, I knew you guys were going to be okay when Zak had that fight and you told him that I was wrong and to do something else. And I was like, okay, these guys are confident enough and excellent enough that they'll be fine without me. I was like, oh, cool, that's fun. So that it's in my head. You can use wall shit on jiu-jitsu. You remember when we were cross training at Reds and Nutriground?
I wasn't around in those gyms for that, but I knew of the Rebel Alliance.
Okay. So we're at Reds doing MMA rounds, and Rob Couillard is beating the fuck out of me from his back. He puts me in a triangle, and instead of finishing the triangle, he's hitting me. He could have finished the triangle. He's choosing not to, and he's hitting me with the boniest parts. He's not punching me with his glove. He's like hammer fisting, wristing, thumbing, inside wrist. I was as bruised and marked up after that night as I think I've ever been after training. And he did it one whole round, and the round ends, and I'm having like this like existential crisis. Like, what the fuck? Like, I know Rob's like better than me at jiu-jitsu, right? But what the fuck? And fuck him for doing that to me. Like, we're boys. You shouldn't have done that. You just cruelly did that to me for 5 minutes. And Red's like, everyone get a new partner. And I'm like, nope, I'm solving this problem right now. And I said, Rob, we're going to go another round. And I drag him right over to the wall. And I push through his guard. And I post up against the wall. And I spend 5 minutes dropping leather on him. And I'm not going as hard at him, I think, as he came at me, just because whatever, without getting all the way into it. But that's the moment where I'm like, okay, against a good guard, this is how I want to start fighting against it. And from there, I teach it. And some of our guys are super good at it. But yeah, that's where that idea, the same thing I did to you during that shark bait, that all came from coaching Zach to half-ass do it one night, and then retaliating against Rob for beating the shit out of me.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. You have plenty of time left, right?
Yeah, I'm not in a hurry.
All right, let's take like 2 minutes because I got to pee so bad.
Go.
Goodbye, viewers. Please don't abandon us. Hey, we only lost 2 viewers, or maybe we lost all 6 and gained 4 new people who didn't know what the fuck's going on. So you started with jiu-jitsu with the intention of getting into MMA?
No, not at all. I just wanted to compete at something. I didn't want to do MMA. I didn't want to do MMA. I liked UFC. I liked learning something they were doing in the UFC. But this is how I got into MMA. Rob wanted to fight. Rob had a fight that he won. And then me, Rob,
you met
Rob at the gym.
Okay.
At Henry's. Yeah, we started. What's that?
Was Zach training at this point?
No, Rob and I started before Zach, about a year before Zach.
Okay.
I can't remember if he had his.
Go ahead.
I think he had his first fight right around the time Zach started at the gym. I'm not sure. Zach started because he wanted to do MMA. So I go on my honeymoon in January of 11.
Okay.
No, this isn't right. Man, I can't remember where I am. But anyway, Zach and Rob both have a fight. It's the only fight Zach's had I didn't corner. It was before Pura Vida. Zach and Rob both have a fight, and they both win. And I think I'm on a family vacation or something. No, I didn't have a family. I think Ann and I are on a vacation.
Yeah.
And we're in class at Henry's, and he's explaining, like, a bunch of you guys call yourselves fighters, but unless you have fought, you are not a fighter. The only fighters here are Rob and Zach. And I'm like, he usually includes me, Rob, and Zach on everything he talks about because we go do all the tournaments and stuff. We're like his next generation of guys. And he says that, and I'm like, oh, huh. And then I start thinking, like, dude, I think Rob and Zach are gonna think I'm a pussy. I think that's a big, driver for me. You know, like, that's what got me back when I was 18. And I, like, man, like, I'm doing work with these guys. I think it's the three of us that are kind of like a crew. But, like, dude, they're gonna think I'm a pussy if I don't take a fight. And so I tell Henry, you know, all bold and straight faced, like I'm ready. I want to fight. And he's like, all right, cool. And he calls Dan Lardy from XFO. And this is after class, after rolling. It's just me, Zach, Rob, and Henry sitting on the mat. And he gets Dan Lardy on the phone. He's like, Dan, on your next show, I got Jake and Zach and Rob ready to go. No pussies. They only fight tough guys. And I'm
what an asshole.
I'm poker face, right? I'm like, if he dies, he dies. And in my brain, I'm like, I would fight a pussy just in case. Just in case you're taking orders, I would fight a pussy. No, but I remember that call going through, and I just don't want these guys to think I'm a puss. So we go down to XFO. My first fight was at, I think it was at 185. Doing jiu-jitsu, I wasn't lifting weights like I used to. I kind of slimmed down to like 205 pounds. So I go fight. I think my fight's at 185. That sounds about right to me. And Vanderveen is sparring with us on Saturdays, and that's our only sparring. I'm doing like cardio kickboxing. I don't know it at the time, but I'm doing cardio kickboxing. I think it's like striking.
Like everyone does.
Really not. What's that?
Just like all those soccer moms do.
Yeah, except I'm going to go fight. So I'm back in the locker room warming up with Vanderveen, and he's like, yeah, you're going to do this and this. You're going to throw this combo, and you're going to do this one. And then only when you like back him up to the fence, are you gonna take him down? I was like, yep, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna throw these combos you are talking about, and I'm gonna strike with this man. And then only when I've backed him up to the fence am I gonna take him down, just like you just said to me. Yes. And then I go out for my walkout, and do my walkouts for amateur debut was cold-blooded as fuck. Kid Cudi, Pursuit of Happiness, that low grinding, and I'm walking slow. And I'm in Illinois, and I think I have like 25 or 26 people come down, and I stop and shake hands and hug all 26 of them on my walk to the ring.
You
like
so much,
dude. This guy is already in the
building hates you. Everyone.
This guy in the ring. Okay, as soon as I walk out, he's like throwing axe kicks over my head. He's like 6'3" and ripped as shit. And the first thing I think is, I'm not striking with that guy. Like, fuck you, Adam. Like, whatever, all that stuff you just told me, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing any of those things we just agreed to. Okay, so I hug everyone on the way to the ring. The guy that's like checking my Vaseline and all that, he's like, is this your first fight? I was like, yeah. He's like, dude, that walkout was fucking awesome. He's been sitting there for 3.5 minutes waiting. Like, I didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
I get in the cage. He throws one kick, and as soon as he throws a leg kick, as soon as he throws it, I grab him and run him and take him down. And I win by TKO. And then I wasn't a pussy anymore. I just proved to the guys I wasn't a pussy. And I really only kept fighting. I never loved it for myself. I love MMA and I love coaching MMA. I never loved doing MMA. I only did it because my guys, that's what we did. And I remember I was like 5-3 as an amateur, and Rob and Zach are having a conversation about like what it takes to be a pro fighter. And Rob said something like, dude, there's guys that could go pro right now, but they just don't believe in themselves. And the way he said it, I'm like, are you talking about me? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, you think I could be a pro fighter? He's like, yes. I'm like, oh, like I never thought about myself in the sport. And yeah, when he said it, that's when I decided like, okay, I guess I'll go pro. But I did it. I did 13 fights, 3-1 pro, 1-1 in what I would call real pro fights, like evenly matched fights.
Okay.
And that was enough for me. I'm good.
A couple years ago, you still had the itch to do like one more.
Mm-hmm.
Still have that itch?
No. So yeah, that was 2015. I had a fight booked. So it actually wasn't a couple years ago. It was like 16.
No, I wasn't even there until like 17. So
after that, I wanted to fight again.
You told me that you wanted to get in shape and have like one more fight,
It's
maybe
gone
two,
now.
something like that. But
Yeah.
okay.
No, I'm past it. Maybe I've got my dates wrong. But I had a fight scheduled. Yeah, this was like after you guys joined the gym. I had a fight scheduled against Eddie Larea. And
So Eddie Larea has fought everybody at this point. I ran into Eddie the first time I ever met him, way before I even knew he was an MMA fighter. I ran into him in Minneapolis. I was doing submission hunt, right? I competed against him no-gi, and I fucked him up like 3 or 4 times, all right? And then we went over and we competed in the gi, and he's in my guard, and he falls back for a leg, and he throws his leg across, and I look at the referee and I say, he's reaping. And then he starts heel hooking me. And I look at the referee and I say, now he's heel hooking me. Pop, pop, pop. Oof. Never reacted. I just talked to the referee about how, okay. So then the match gets stopped. And I'm like, what are you doing? I will never deal with this referee. I've had multiple issues with this referee outside of that problem. He's gone all sorts of dumb shit. He's just a shitty referee.
Yeah.
He says, oh, my bad. I didn't know that was illegal. Eddie genuinely did not know that was illegal. I really believe that. He had no idea. He's a fighter. He had no clue that when he had a gi on, he couldn't do that shit. Okay. The referee didn't know it was allowed. And then said, okay, well, we'll just restart the match in the same position. Go fuck yourself. Like, no. I won this match. I just won that. I ended up taking like 2nd or 3rd in that division because I couldn't compete the rest of that division. Had to fall out of the rest of the matches. Yeah. And then I went to chiropractor for like an hour and a half, and Eddie dislocated my heel. He didn't tear anything in my knee. The weak link in my leg was not my knee, it was my ankle. So he literally didn't dislocate my ankle. He dislocated my heel. Just the bone in my heel popped out, and then the chiropractor later moved it back in. Cool. And then I went and competed, I think 2 or 3 more times and won one of those matches or some shit. Anyways. And then later on, I found out that Eddie Larea is a fighter and has been fighting everybody. And like, I've seen him fight 4 dudes since then, like people I know, all sorts. Anyways, your thing.
Yeah. I was booked to fight him. There was going to be a new promotion up in Green Bay. And I was getting ready for a fight with Eddie. And I think I probably spent like a month in camp. And then I got a call that the promotion folded. And I was like, dude, I think this is like a sign. Like, I think I don't need to do this. I wouldn't have pulled out of the fight or anything. Even if I had had that epiphany before the fight, I still would have done it. Probably because I wouldn't have wanted you guys to think I was a pussy. But man, it was like, I'm good. So I get to satisfy my competitive itch, combat sports itch through coaching. I'm fully, I feel just as much adrenaline and joy and despair and sorrow coaching guys who win and lose fights.
All the things you need come from it, that you can get them all here instead of being in the cage yourself.
Yeah.
there's been a lot of parallels in your thought process to my thought process. I've never been in a street fight my entire life. I bounced for a little bit.
It doesn't count.
One hit me, right? Like one person has ever hit me outside of training, right? But I've been training my whole entire life. The reason I've never been in a street fight is because I consider it disrespectful to myself.
Yeah.
I have been working with some of the greatest people on the planet who specialize in fist fights. Why would I go fight some scrub on the street who don't know shit?
That's what I figured out my first night of jiu-jitsu. Like, this is the mountain I want to be on top of, not that one I thought I wanted to be on top of.
Why would I bother? It's a waste of my time. And if I have to get to a situation where I have to fight you, the level of violence I'm capable of inflicting, you likely don't deserve. And if you get me to a point where I'm going to inflict it, you're probably going to get a lot more than you deserve. And I don't want to be in that situation. So I just would rather laugh at your face and make you feel terrible about yourself. And if that turns into a fight, well, then, all right, well, I probably deserve that one. But like, it's just not worth my time. It's literally not worth my time.
Yep.
And I forget what other stuff you said, but it's a lot of like the similar, like, just
you can relate to some of it.
A lot, like, not even just relate, like almost word for word, it's the same thought that I've had that's caused the same kind of like shifts in what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Like I didn't start jiu-jitsu with the intention of doing MMA. But when I looked around the room, everyone who was great at jiu-jitsu was an MMA fighter. And there were some other people that were okay at jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
But if you're good at jiu-jitsu, fight in MMA. Because in 2005, when I started, everyone who was good at jiu-jitsu was an MMA fighter. Everyone. So if I'm going to be good at jiu-jitsu, inevitably I'll fight in MMA. And that was the greatest thing I'd ever done. There's no singular moment. Like, there are plenty of moments I love with my kids, but there's no like singular moment that is as exciting as I was at the very first MMA fight. And none of the other ones compared to that. Like, it's almost like I'm chasing the dragon. Like, that one moment is a higher rush than anything else I've ever seen. And it made me an addict, right? And then, like, like, I'm, okay, I already have these skills. I can do this. This is apparently a career path, so I don't want to do any of those things. Let me just do this. So you kind of got, like, forced into coaching. A number of years, not like someone beat it into you, but like you were put in a position. Henry left, and said, "Here, have a gym," right? And then there's only like 4 dudes that were interested in fighting still, and you were one of those dudes who was interested, even if you didn't want to be the guy who was doing the fighting, right? So like, circumstances forced you into being a coach.
Right.
Before I ever joined PV, I was there for an open mat one day, and you were talking about you and Andrea had just met with a financial advisor or some shit. And they were talking about what Andrea needed to do to retire versus what you needed to do to retire. And you told me that you told him, like, well, when I retire, I'm going to just teach jiu-jitsu and run this gym. And he's like, okay, so you're already retired then. So like, we don't need to talk about your shit. When did you realize you didn't want to be a regular person? When did you decide, fuck all that other stuff, this is where I live? This is who I am?
So I'm working at U.S. Bank for 4.5 years. And it's my first grown-up job. My bosses are super cool. The job is easy because I'm really good at it, right? It's not like anyone can't do that job, but it was easy for me to be great at that job. I had money. Like, I wasn't paycheck to, I was paycheck to paycheck because I had shitty spending habits, but like, I knew I could pay rent every month. I had money in a savings account. I had health insurance, like things that grownups have that I had never had up to that point in my life. I had those things. And that I had opportunity at the bank where I could have like climbed the ladder, and I could have had a career working at the bank. Mm-hmm. And Andrea told me, what's it take to go back to school for you? Because she had just graduated nursing school. So I work while she's in school, and she gets done with school and she's going to become a nurse. And she's like, what do you have to do to get your degree? And I'm like, I had a bill due at UWM from when I had pulled out. I had a shitload of credits, but in all kinds of different things. I never met with an advisor and had a plan to graduate in place.
I think that's the right way to do it.
To a point.
Collect the knowledge. Don't worry about the piece of paper at the end. Anyway, keep going.
I go in, I pay my little bill I had due. And I find out like there's a couple different degree programs I could go into. Anyway, she's like, you should quit that job and go get your degree. And I'm like, quit the job? Like, what are you talking about? Like, this is a good job. She's like, you're miserable in that job. Like, that's not, you're a superstar. Like, what are you doing in that job? And I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, every day is a 6 or 7 at this job. I had 0 bad days. No days were a 9 or 10. Right? Like, she wanted me to chase those 9s and 10s, and she saw it. I wasn't miserable. I just was vanilla. I was like a normal working stiff.
Can you hear my dog barking?
What's that?
Can you hear my dog barking?
A little, not much.
Okay. I'm just ignoring them.
I can't hear him. So I go into UWM. I'm like, hey, what's the fastest degree I can get? They're like, well, you got a bunch of credits in education. It's a 2-year program, blah, blah, blah. I was like, no, I got more. What's the fastest fucking degree I can get? And they said, how do you feel about creative writing? I'm like, whatever. I don't give a shit. 1.5 years, I can be done with a creative writing degree. So I go to the bank and I'm like, hey, I'm cutting back to halftime. Or I'm going to quit. And they offered me a halftime deal. Fine. My little brother was a bar manager. He hired me on as a security guy.
That's when I met you.
This was in spring of 2010. And
spring of 2010 is when I met you. I was wearing a Waukesha mixed martial arts shirt. I was 18, maybe 19, walking down the street, and you and Rob Couliard were bouncers standing outside the front door, and you're like, you do jiu-jitsu? Come in the bar. And I was like, hell yeah, I'm sneaking in the bar. And then that became my underage drinking spot.
I'm glad I could contribute. I'm glad I could contribute to your delinquency. So I'm now working at a bank part-time. I'm going to school, and I'm working at a bar to make up my share of the bills. And starting in the fall, I'm going to be a bar supervisor. Like, I'll just make more money and I don't have to work at the bank anymore. And Henry, it was fall 2010 when Henry called me and was like, I got an opportunity. I'm going to go down to Illinois. You're going to run the school. And I said to Andrea, like, Henry wants me to do this. And she's like, this is what you're supposed to do. I'm like, what? She's like, I always thought you'd be good at running a school. I'm like, what? Like, what the fuck are you, where are you seeing that I don't see? And she's like, you're a leader. Like, you love jiu-jitsu. This is what you're supposed to do. And I'm like, oh, fuck. So, you've got a great partner, Chrissy, and I got a great partner in Andrea. And she recognized in me that I was supposed to be doing this.
I got you. The same way you felt where it was just kind of like, all the time. That's how I was bartending. Yeah. I gave myself like 5 years to put my life on pause, and then I needed to figure it out. And then in year 4, Montel was like, I'm going to go to Thailand. I'm like, Thailand? I could go to Thailand. So I went to Thailand. And then when I was in Thailand, I quit my job. I moved out of my house. I put all my stuff in my parents' basement. And while I was there, the only thing that existed was training. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, I don't like any of the other stuff doing. Like, I spent almost all my time. I was either in a bar, I was in a gym, or I was in bed. Well, when I was in Thailand, the bars were gone. So I was either in the gym or I was in bed. And like, why am I doing any of this other shit? This is the only thing I actually like. Why am I fucking with anything else?
Right.
And I came back from Thailand and then ended up training with you guys. Anyways, but yeah. That makes total sense to me. That makes complete sense to me. Jiu-Jitsu was not a business until I met my wife.
Yeah.
my jiu-jitsu business started when you told me that I could get a whole bunch of like cool tax stuff if I made myself an LLC. Right. But even then I was just fucking off, and it was just like, I'm gonna get tax write-offs. And then my wife was like, yeah. So I'm trying to work with this new prospect, right? Heavyweight talent, blah, 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 blah. And I've been like, after wrestling, I'll spend 10 minutes working with him, teaching him some stuff, fundamental stuff that Solo taught me right off the bat.
Yep.
And then I come home and I'm like thinking about the way that his game works, thinking about blah, 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 blah. And I tell my wife, and she's like, why the fuck are you giving away something for nothing? So I had to go to him like, hey man, like, I don't really care about money. It's not really why I'm here. That's not what I'm trying to tell you. But if I keep giving away something for nothing, my wife's going to kick my ass. I just got to find some. So we haven't really finished that conversation. But like, it's the same thing. Like, I'll just walk up and I'll teach you for 7 hours for free, because this is what I do. And you have to be the one doing it.
The evolution of Pura Vida is like me. I don't want to talk to people about money. I don't want to talk about memberships. I don't want to ask people why they're behind on payments. Like, I understand why so many of these businesses fail. Zach is much better at money management than me. And then our program director, Kate, is like a hustler. So it takes time to find the right pieces to get to where we're at now. And where we're at now, I don't want to oversell and act like it's top of the world. Like, that's where we're going. That's not where we're at now. But over time, you find these pieces that can do things that you're not good at. And someone walks on the mat, I'm teaching them jiu-jitsu. I'm running an MMA class. I don't give a fuck. And they'll ask like, well, so-and-so has an advanced membership and so-and-so has a beginner membership. And I'm like, I don't care.
What's the difference?
You can go to beginner classes or you can go to advanced classes.
No. I wasn't asking you. Like, that would have been my thought. Like, oh, well, he only has a such and such. What? Did he sign a waiver? I don't know if he signed a waiver.
Well, they're like, I'm not going to ask anyone. I don't give a fuck. I'll make an announcement. Hey, beginner classes in the back, advanced classes out here. Go to whichever one you're supposed to be in. And then I just teach. Whatever, man. But I understand that I need people who are good at that. And so instead of trying to do it myself and I'm not good at it, it sounds like you might need to find someone also. When you get your gym going, you're going to need to find somebody to do that for you.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I grew up where like my family had money. I never had money. I never had shit. But my family had money. So any of my my housing, my clothing, my school stuff, my food, like that shit was all covered. So the idea of me needing money never really mattered.
Right.
The only thing I needed money for was like buy video games, or if I wanted to eat bullshit instead of the food in the house. So that's just how I developed. And like I lived with my family till I was 23. Like the idea of needing money was never there. That's not how she came up. Not at all. So I've always known that since I was 6 years old, I've known that I was going to have my own martial arts school.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know it was going to be jiu-jitsu. I wasn't doing jiu-jitsu at 6. I started jiu-jitsu at 14. But I knew that I would inevitably have my own martial arts school. I have turned down multiple offers to open up schools because I don't want to run a school. Not at all. I have no interest in being in charge of any of that shit. I recently heard a story of this guy who built he was in construction. So he started out a small construction company. It got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it got to a point where he was never doing construction. So he shut down the entire business. And he went back to doing construction. And then he hired a person to run the business. And he's not in charge of shit. His name is on everything. Like, he owns the place. But nobody calls him for shit. Nobody even knows he runs the place. Because he's out there punching and kicking. That's all he's doing. All he's doing is swinging a hammer. Probably even the people that are standing next to him don't know he's the one in charge. Like undercover boss type shit. That's exactly what I want. All I want to do is teach combat. That's it.
Got to find the right partners and the right employees and the right people.
Probably 2 years, maybe almost 2 years into being at Pura Vida, I went to Solo one day and I was like, hey man, I gotta learn how to sign people up for their 30-day intro thing. And he's like, I'm so proud of you. You never wanted any of these types of things. I was like, yeah, Like I let them sign waivers, but that's only because I have to. But I got to a point where too many people asked me to do that, and there was too many times where no one else in the building was capable of doing that. So I just had to learn. And he's like, "Hey, just so you know, all you have to do, flip over the paper. Problem solved." I was like, "Oh, damn, it was so easy."
Like I've been ignoring this all along.
I was just literally unwilling to learn. I'm not interested. Nope. And then I had to.
You have to, yeah, when a business, especially when a business is new, like you have to do everything. I don't want to clean out the toilets. I'd much rather be to the point where I can hire someone to clean the toilets. But there's no money for that. You're the toilet cleaner when you first start your business. And then as the business grows,
at the same time,
the hour you spend cleaning the bathroom, you'll make more money running your business and then hiring someone to clean your bathroom. And now we got, I'm proud to say we now have someone that cleans our bathrooms. Like,
hey,
it's not me anymore. And I still, if there's a mess in the night, I go take care of it, or whoever takes care of it that's here. But it takes time. You do every job at the beginning until the financial situation gets to where you can hire out different aspects of it.
When I met you, you were wearing about 37 different hats around the gym. Are you down to just a couple of hats yet?
Yeah. I teach jiu-jitsu. I teach fight team stuff. I work with fighters. I manage the team. I do pure FC stuff. Yeah, I do a lot less. I don't do sales. I don't even know how much our memberships cost right now. I'm not lying to you. I'm not saying it.
I love that answer.
Someone will come in and be like, "Hey, can I buy a shirt?" I'll be like, "Yeah." I'll tell Kate to send you a message about how to do it. Like,
that's exactly, yeah.
Hey, how much is a shirt? I'm like, bro, I don't know. I don't know how much a shirt costs in my gym that I own. I don't know, but they're great.
Your name down. Write down what kind of shirt you got. I'll give it to someone responsible, and you can leave with the shirt, and they'll put it on your membership.
I was like, do you want to pay cash? Do you want to? How do you want to do this? Like, bill it. We keep billing on file for memberships. I'm like, I believe we can bill your whatever's on file. Like, I think that's how it works. And they're like, okay. So that's what I do. Tell someone else. And I don't know. I don't know how much stuff is. I don't know how it works. People out, you meet someone at a show or something like, hey, how much does it cost to come to your gym? I'm like, hey, I don't know. Like, just come in. And to me, like, if they made it through the gauntlet of the front desk and got out to the mat during my class, I'd be like, hey, come out here and train. Because someone up there will take care of you and make sure that everything's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you need that, especially as the gym gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, right? until you reach that point, like you are front desk person and you are on the mats, and then also like we're small businesses. Finding the right person, you're going to go through the wrong person a few times, and you just kind of learn as you go.
So, in talking about all those hats that you wear, right? I'm glad to hear that you've like taken most of them off. Do you know the one thing that you do better than anyone else I've ever met? Right? Of all of the, like, there's plenty of things that you do in this space. There's plenty of things you do well. Some you do better than others. The one thing that you do better than any human being I have ever met is that you can see the path. Right? Like, and I don't know if that directly makes sense yet, but like one of the biggest things that's a problem with MMA is there's no direct path to where you want to go, right? You start out, you play peewee football, and then you get into like middle school and then high school. And if you're good enough, you'll play in college. And if you're good enough, you'll get to the pros. There's none of that shit in MMA. You're the only person I've ever met that can clearly see the path.
It's not just, thank you. I agree. I don't know about that I'm the only person, but
you're the only one I've met. Yo, there's plenty of people who can do that. You're the best person I've ever met at it. And I've met a lot of people.
Yeah. It kind of goes back to something else I said where I know what I see when I'm looking at you in the gym. Your first month of sparring, I'm watching you, and I have a good idea of what you can become. I know what the elite version of a guy looks like. And I'm wrong sometimes. Sometimes the elite version ends up being different than what I thought. But usually not. Usually I know what the elite version looks like. And there's all kinds of filters between where we are now and what that elite version of the guy, the reality of it is. And any one of those filters can take a guy out. An injury, lack of training habits, something comes up in his life that pulls him away from this career, and that's fine. Like, that happens, right? Like, but I can see, I'm pretty good at seeing the elite version of our guys. Like, I know what the UFC fight winning version of you looks like. And I got a good idea. I can see what you need to get there. And then I can also see what your career needs. So
That's
that when
the career thing.
Yeah, I know. But I'm telling, it's a two, people miss it. Like, you got all these managers in the game that like, well, if you get this fight and that fight, you'll be in the UFC. And it's like, okay, yeah, but unless you also get better at this thing, that thing, and that thing, when you get to the UFC, you're not going to stay. Like, it's not just the path to get there. It's the path to get there and be ready to be that elite version of yourself when the call comes. And it's not just the call anymore. You know, at first it was so exciting when the UFC call would come. And now the goal has changed. The goal, we know how to make UFC winning fighters. We won over half of our UFC fights.
How many fighters have we gotten to the UFC at this point?
6.
Or the big, yeah, right? And then Jonas would be basically 7 going to the PFL?
Jonas got a PFL fight, so that would be 7. Yep.
Yeah, okay. I told somebody it was 9 the other day, but regardless.
Sooner or
I
later.
needed to swing your dick around so that he would believe me. I was like, look, this is a close personal friend. He's made 9 people get to the UFC. Trust me when I tell you this shit.
It's like, just okay, upside down. It's the 6 upside down. It's no problem.
Yeah,
Plenty
whatever.
of people do that.
And then I counted, and I was like, it's like 6 or 7. But anyways.
No, but like, you know, you'll hear guys like, this is what UFC champions do. They'll say things like that. And unless you've made a UFC champion, you're guessing that's what you're doing. And that's what we're doing. Like, we think we're teaching, we think the path that we're talking about, we think these things will lead to a UFC championship. I don't know that. We haven't had a ranked fighter yet. Montel got as high as 18. I think he will be. I know how to win UFC fights. I know how to coach, manage. I know how to get you to be a UFC winning fighter. And I believe we can do more than that. We're going to, and the goal is to be the best gym in the world with multiple UFC champions. And I love it when I hear someone say, this is a UFC, this kid is going to be a UFC champion. It's like, how do you know? How do you know what the fuck you're talking about? You don't know what you're looking at. You haven't been a UFC champion. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying you don't know. So, I don't know. I can see in the gym a path where this prospect is a UFC winning fighter. And then once we've made the top 15 guy, I'll be able to see a little more clearly, like, oh, you can become a ranked fighter. And then once we've made a UFC champion, I'll be able to say, you can become a UFC champion. But right now, I know what UFC winning fighters look like, and we've got them in the gym. And not just guys that want the UFC. We've got guys that will go in fights in the UFC that weren't there yet. And the path to managing their career and finding the right fights to do that also involves the easy example, right? Say you get beat by a wrestler. We're going to work on your wrestling. I'm going to find maybe a step-down version of that wrestler that beat you for you to go get your new skills with, to make sure they work under fire, to get you confident in it. So the next time we face an elite wrestler, you've got the skills and the tools to do that. Okay, that's like a simple example of the way I would not just pick a fight to get you to the UFC. I would pick a fight that would get your skills ready to win fights in the UFC. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't know. Solo talks to me about that sometimes. He's like, how do you look at the board? This is the guys, right? That's the team. So how do you look at the board and know what they need? Like, I don't know. I could not write a book on how to do this because everyone is different. The advice and instruction you, Josh, what do you need is different than the advice and instruction anyone else needs. Everyone needs something different.
The reason I signed up at Pura Vida my intention when I got there was just to do my striking with Solo and then to continue grappling at Reds, because the level of training partners that I had at Reds was way higher than the level that you just had access to, right? So I was like, I'm gonna spend my time, whatever. And I was like, well, I'll do this, I'll do that, whatever. And then one day I was sitting there, and you were sitting on the side of the mat, and Jamey Simmons had a fight like a week before that. And Jamey came over and sat down next to you, and you started breaking down everything that happened in his fight, where he needed to improve, how he's going to do this, how he's going to do that, blah, 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 blah. Here's what you did well. Here's what you did poorly. Here's what we need to do in your life. Here's what we can do in the gym, blah, 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 blah. And I had never seen anybody do anything like that before. Never seen it. Didn't even know if you were right. No clue. Didn't matter. Nobody had ever been invested like that. No coach I had ever seen. And I told you I was impressed, and you were like, what? What did I do? What do you mean? What are you talking about? I just was chatting with Jamey. What do you, huh? Right? Like, I told, right when, like, within 6 months.
Not right now. Go out in the gym. Go out in the gym by Mike.
To Pura Vida. Solo asked me why I had so much respect for you. And it wasn't that like,
give me one pause.
Yep.
1 second.
Yep.
Hey, what do you need?
TV is on, but there's something that's yellow and we're in the north that's white.
I'll be back in 10 seconds.
Perfect. I'm a Pete. To my 4 viewers, I appreciate you so much. And I'm going to keep doing these kinds of things, right? Origins of an expert. Every single person, every single superhero has an origin story. As Jake pointed out to me when I mentioned it, so does every single villain. So does every single expert. And for years, I thought that everybody's origin story was my origin story, right? And when people ask me, like, they're like, people that I meet randomly on the street are like, oh, hey, how did you get into MMA? Why do you do blah, 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 blah? And I tell them the story. They look at me like, wait, what? What the fuck? What are you talking about? And it was years of me telling people the same exact story. That seems very normal to me. I don't know what you guys are all weirded out about. Before I realized that not everyone's story was my story. So I want to know how people got where they are. So this is Origins of an Expert, Jake Klipp. Right? We already did.
Expert, man. Don't call me expert. I feel like that's a lot of weight.
Yeah. Right. I'm not telling you you're some grandmaster at the top of the mountain. Okay. But there's beginners, there's intermediates, there's advanced, there's experts. At this point, you are an expert mind in the space of combat.
Okay, I got it.
You might not be the world's best fighter, but you see the path better than anybody. You're an expert at the path. I guarantee you that. Right? There's plenty of stuff in here that you are an expert at. So that's how we got here. I got to close the story. Right. So within 6 months of us coming to Pura Vida, Solo asked me why I had so much respect for you. And it wasn't in any sort of like he disrespected you, but like I don't speak highly of people. I'm just as likely to tell you that someone's terrible as someone's okay, and I will rarely tell you that they're any good. So it was confusing to him that I had so much respect for you when we had barely been there. Like, what did you see? What is happening? And I told him, like, he's not there yet. Like, you were still very much, and probably still are, a diamond in the rough. You were an unpolished turd. We'll figure it out. But, like, I didn't know where your mind was going to go or how you were going to do it, but you belong in that same space as the Mike Wakel Johns, as the Greg Jackson. Greg Jackson is who I actually brought up, right? Like that there was something about you that belonged here and was going to excel past the average person. And it was probably like 2 or 3 years later that Solo finally was like, oh, okay, I'm starting to see what you're talking about. Like, I don't even know if he still knows exactly what I meant, but he's starting to pick up on what I was talking about independently of what he's seen himself. And what it is that you see the path, man. Like how many dudes are 28-2 and they've never been in the UFC? How many dudes get to 40 years old, they stop fighting, they never had their opportunity, right? Rafian Stotts was ranked number 1 in Wisconsin for fucking ever, or whatever he was, ranked blah, blah, blah in the nation. And then O'Day Osborne, one of his main training partners, comes over to PV, and in 9 months, a year, he's got a UFC contract, and I don't think Rafian fought a single time in that amount of time. That has nothing to do with their skill level. That has to do with someone taking their career and shaping it and pushing them forward down the path. That's the thing that you do better than anyone else I've ever seen.
Thank you.
So I had is there anybody on that board back there that everybody needs to know and nobody knows yet?
I have generations, right? Depending on how far into your career you are. I was just talking with another Midwest promoter. He's like, hey, I need some he helps with a big show, and then he runs what I would call a small show, bigger than my show, but a small, like a regional show. He's like, I need some main event worthy guys for my small show over the next however many months. And he's talking about 2-0, 3-0 pros, 3-1 pros, right? Like once they're a little further up the chain and they're on the televised promotions. And I was like, yeah, I got, by the end of 2022, I'll have these, I think it was 5 guys, main eventing your shows. Not all of them, because fights will come up that come up. But we are at every generation in the UFC, ready for the UFC, couple fights away, getting started on your pro careers, winding up your amateur careers, promising amateurs, early amateurs. I just always want to keep those tiers loaded with guys. So the answer to your question is, yeah, there's guys on the board that people are going to know about, but I don't play favorites, and I can see the path for a whole bunch of guys on the board. We had a talk. Man, there was a Saturday practice at the old gym, and we probably had 20 guys on the mat, and I said, today's the first day. After practice, I'll usually do a little Jake
powwow.
Yeah, there's no powwow. And I'm like, it's really cool in here today because it's the first time over half of you have realistic UFC dreams. And it's not at all an insult to the guys that don't, because plenty of the guys on this team at that time, plenty of the guys on the team are here because they like it. They like being on the team, but they've got real careers lined up. They're going to do a few fights because it's thrilling and they like it. They're not on the team to be in the UFC. And it's not disrespectful or an insult. And I cherish them because they're great training partners and they help us build the culture of the team. And I explain all that. And I'm like, but today is the first day. If you look around, over half of you want to and can get into the UFC. And I didn't single people out. But that was like a super cool, to me, tipping point. Like me and Solo talked about it afterwards. Like, oh, fuck. Like, you know, when we're smaller and probably the way it was at the Reds, like you get guys and you're like, oh, man, that guy or those 2 guys are super talented. They're more talented than everyone else. That was the first day where we had a room full of people and it was like, oh, shit, over half of these guys, the path to the UFC is there. in my head.
American Top Team said that they have, it's normal for them to have 100 guys on the mat. Yeah. And if you look around, 5 of them are championship material.
So like I said,
and an American Top Team, 90 of them have UFC potential.
Yeah.
And only 5 of them are really, truly world class.
So we're not there yet, right? Like
sure.
I can see what I can see. The end of the path in my mind gets foggy because I don't know. Someone there has the ability to say 5 of these guys have championship potential. I don't have that ability yet because I haven't been there yet.
No. Right now you're being a politician and you're trying not to offend your team. So I'm going to do it for you, okay? I know very little of the people that are actually on that team right now. And in the last 2 years, I've only seen this guy once. I don't even know his real name. Hungry Brown Kid has fucking potential. That kid is going to be good. I watched him wrestle, and then I watched him in jiu-jitsu. I've seen him spar. I've taught him a little bit. I don't know anything about him. I don't know anything about his style. Like I said, I don't even know his real name. That dude is going somewhere. As long as he stays here, that dude's going somewhere. So who's on that board that's going somewhere that we don't know about?
So this is hold on. This is why I'm going to tell you how I can't answer your question. That day, half the guys in the room. Today, if I pointed to the board, over 90% of them, the path is there. Like we have a serious team in the 30s. No, maybe we're not at 30. COVID wiped some guys out. I think we're at 28 guys on the board that are like actively training and actively looking for fights. And 3 of them might not have the desire, right? Everyone else, the path is there. We got some fucking talents. But you're talking about Lindsey Hudson. So let me not answer your question, but go talk about Lindsey a little bit to keep you happy. Lindsey's a savage.
I won't push you if you want to deny questions, but I will ask you inflammatory shit.
Here's the funny thing, right? Like, so you see Lindsey's talent. Lindsey had no accolades of note in high school wrestling. He had an impressive senior year record. I can't remember what it was, but he didn't place it. He's 23 or 24.
Okay.
Lower 20s, but not like 19. So good wrestler, but not like a state place winner, right? Mm-hmm. And yet you can watch his wrestling and just know it's going to be super effective for MMA. And he's going
to be good.
He's trying to tell me like, oh, I don't know if wrestling's how I'm going to. He doesn't believe in his wrestling. And he's like, I didn't, win state or whatever. And it's like, nah, it just doesn't show the same way. I know your wrestling works for MMA. You're relentless.
Yep.
One of so my kids are wrestling now. Oh yeah. So Lindsey, let me finish the Lindsey thing, right? He lost his last fight. You know that?
No, I don't even know if he's ever had a fight to this point.
He starts 2-0, super impressive. We go, he's probably, he might be a 35er. He's for sure a 45er. We take this fight at 55 down in Illinois. And I need guys tested, and I kind of need them to lose as amateurs, right? Like, I just need to see how you respond to it.
You need someone to put it on them, and hopefully they win it. But that you have to have someone to put it on them.
Or don't, hopefully you win it because I'm a competitive coach that wants to win. But when I'm wearing the manager hat, like, you don't even need to win it as long as you stay in it and you're trying to win. All right, so Lindsey's striking with this taller, longer banger. This guy is a striker. And he tries to take him down in the first, but the guy's height kind of frustrates Lindsey's takedowns a little bit. It was like he lifted and the guy wasn't up in the air.
Toes or some shit. Yeah.
Lindsey gets taken down in the first round awkwardly. Lands awkwardly, and I thought he might have hurt his shoulder, but he pops right back up, which is one of the things that makes his wrestling effective. And he keeps fighting. Second round, we're telling him, like, if you take this kid down, you're a better grappler than him. And he's striking in the second round. He tries to take down, it doesn't work. He's throwing in the second round. We go into the third round. I said, Are you having fun? Like, are you having fun striking with this guy? And he's like, yeah, I really am. Like, this is really fun. And I'm like, okay, we might be losing 2 rounds to none. And if we needed, I should be telling you right now to take him down and finish him. But if you're having fun fighting this totally new way for you, I'm okay with it. Like, let's go fight this way in the third round. Let's strike with this guy. And if you lose a decision this way, if we're having fun and we're doing this new thing, and this is like in the middle of the fight, Josh, between the second and third round, I'm telling him we might be losing, but if this is fun for you, this is a new
way more important. Way more important.
I'm good. Let's do it. So he's like, that's what I want to do. I want to strike with this guy. I'm like, all right, cool. Goes out and strikes. He ends up getting dropped. TKO'd, not badly, but he loses to a good, bro, it was good, man. Fight ends. I got no problem with the way that fight went. Developmentally, great fight. You believed in your striking when you've been like a takedown machine in your first couple fights. He broke his arm in the first round when he got taken down awkwardly.
Yo.
He couldn't take the guy down.
You're too fucking.
He couldn't take the guy down because he didn't have strength in his arm.
Yeah.
But he could strike, and he was hitting the guy with that arm. He split the kid's lip open, and I think he had to get stitches or something. I don't know. But like, it wasn't just I'm having fun and I want to strike. It was like, I can't fucking wrestle and I don't want to tell you. And you know how I am when someone breaks a bone in a fight. I'm pretty ruthless. I don't really give a fuck.
You told me to shut the fuck up and stop. I came back in between the first round and I was like, hey, I think I broke my hand, and you didn't say a word. You and Zach didn't say a word. Nothing. And you guys said like blah 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 blah. I was like, no, I don't think you understand. Like, I think it broke my hand. I said it like 3 or 4 times. And then finally I think you put your hand on my shoulder, or you might have smacked me, and you're like, are you gonna stop fighting? I said, no. Then shut the fuck up. You got that.
But what did you do, Josh? What happened? How did that fight go? I can't remember.
Oh yeah, I definitely beat the shit out of him. That was the hardest fight I've ever had, including my losses, including the 2 dudes who fucked me up. That's still the hardest fight I ever had.
You fucked that guy up with one hand? I think I said something like,
I really choked him. He kept taking me down, and then
I think I said something like, "You're a jiu-jitsu ace. Choke him with one arm." How'd you finish him off?
Probably. No, I used both arms, I think.
No, you didn't. That was a one-arm fucking finish.
It might have been. That might have been. That might have been a one-arm rear naked choke. It might have even been the broken arm. I don't know.
It was pretty dope. But anyway, Lindsay, yeah, man, this tough motherfucker breaks his arm in the first round and bangs for the next 2 rounds because he can't wrestle anymore. He's going to be really good. He's actually I think he said maybe this week or next week, he's allowed to come back in and start training again. You know, it takes like 6 weeks for bones to knit together. So special talent, special prospect, super good kid. Now we got guys that are my guys. I love them. They're like, I got like soul connection with. They're pieces of shit. They're my kind of pieces. They're my pieces of shit, right? Dude, Lindsay's not. Like, Lindsay's a good man. He's like happily married and like a teacher and a savage fighter who's like a great person.
I had no idea he was a respectable human being. I like him even more. I hope he hears this shit. You're the one name I'm dropping today. He's got a lot of fighters. He's got a lot of UFC fighters. Montel Jackson is the father-in-law. What the fuck is he?
Godfather.
He's the godfather to one of my kids. Solo's the godfather to one of my kids. Those are not the names that I'm trying to bring up right now. You are going to be a motherfucker if you keep doing this. He's never going to see this shit. Anyways.
He's a stud. He's a stud, man.
He really is.
Be real good. No, we got a board full of guys that I think have justifiable UFC dreams. Mm-hmm. I'll never shit on someone's dream. Like, if they don't have that potential necessarily, it's not like I'm going to tell them like, hey, you're never going to be good enough. We just work and we go whatever the ceiling is. And I'm wrong sometimes, but whatever the ceiling is, let's bust our ass and go get to it and enjoy ourselves and have a great career. But man, we got some fucking high potential guys on the team. 90% plus are like, if they want it, let's go get it.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything you have anything coming up?
Oh yeah. I just booked we got an amateur named Andrew Henschel who's a 205er. He's 1-0. He came to us from another gym. He's a blue belt. He wrestled in college at Oshkosh. I think he took 3rd at state in high school. He's like a little power lifter. He's 5'10", 5'11", and can do like backflips. He weighs 230 pounds, and he's like all muscle. We just booked him in
he's an
Indiana.
Amateur?
What?
You said he's an amateur?
1-0 amateur.
Hell yeah.
Just got him a fight in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks He's fighting a big ass weightlifting brown belt down in Indiana.
Okay.
Who's also 1-0. That guy just won on Saturday and wanted to like fight again right away. 2 weeks later, the promoter called me. I was like, man, I got a kid. We're gonna do a catch weight because I don't know if Andrew can make 205 in time. But this guy, there's always like some people just always want to negotiate. Like, okay, they want him to make weight. It's like, listen, man, like he's a big motherfucker, but he's like a blue belt. He's a wrestler, and this is a good fight for both guys. This weightlifting fucking brown belt, no one wants to fight that guy. My guy will fight that guy. Just in 2 weeks, he can't make 205. So I think they're going to do it at 210. But anyway, I'm excited about that one. But wait, Josh, there's more. March 11th, we've got Pure FC in Stevens Point, mostly featuring local Stevens Point guys, but a couple of our guys are on. Wes Schultz is fighting. He'll have his second pro fight. Ben Shower's making his pro debut. Ben Shower, who was a really good amateur.
He's like the heaviest person in the world, right? He's like a little taller than me and has heavier hands than any other human being in existence. Is that who I'm talking about?
Yeah, he's like a Marine. He grew up doing
looks like that. Yeah, I don't know anything about this. I worked with him one time, and I could not hold my shoulder. I don't have the greatest shoulders, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't hold. We were doing a striking class, and he hit so fucking hard, I had to stop. Like, no, man, no, we're not doing this shit anymore.
He hits pretty fucking hard, and the scary thing is like he's going to be better as a pro because he can march knees in on people's chins.
Yeah.
Everyone's tried to wrestle him because he's so tall and lanky, and like his striking style is so evasive that everyone wants to wrestle him. And it's been, I got to defend your takedown, frame, get away so I can get back to my rangy style. Well, now he can defend your takedown and then bring knees up to your chin. Dude, he's going to be super good. March 11th. We got more guys, but I got to keep going. 12th, 19th, 26th, 2nd, April 8th. We've got guys fighting in Chicago and possibly South Dakota. April 15th, Tyus is going to fight again in Minnesota. And then we just booked
like 2-0 or some shit now?
4-1. He lost his last fight on LFA, got pieced up by a probably UFC ready 25er. So he's fighting a 6-3 kid. Good fight. And then we've got a good amateur fight on that one too. And then the next weekend, April 22nd and 3rd, we're flying Nelly and hopefully one amateur out to an LFA card. And we're fighting up in La Crosse. Brian Sullivan's got a cool fight up in La Crosse. So actually this week, us coaches got to kind of figure out who's going where with who. And
where's the LFA fight at?
It's the far side of North Dakota. So they're going to fly us to it.
Okay.
It's like a 12.5-hour drive through like no cell phone reception. So they're going to fly us out there. But it'll be cool. We're hoping it's Nelly and Dylan Diebitz out there, Brian Sullivan in La Crosse. And like it's a tough, when you have flights, they can't bring all three of us coaches. Like it's price prohibitive. So we have a little system in place with coaches where we figure out who's going where.
Mm-hmm. But
the nice thing is there's fights that weekend that we all want to go to. So if you end up on the North Dakota crew, great. If you end up in the La Crosse crew, great. Like there'll be some good fights.
Yep. Got you. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's something for May, but I didn't write it down. I don't remember when or where.
Only other question that I really have, and honestly, we probably already touched on this, but why do you do what you do?
Okay, so remember I had that little dark phase in my life where I worked at the bank, where I was like, oh, this is a comfortable life I can live in forever. And I was not accepting who I am. And who I am is a lot of things. But one of the things I am is like this competitive, I want to be the best in the world. And so why I do what I do is there's a lot of reasons. I love human interaction and connection. I love coaching and developing guys. I love the path that you talked about, seeing it, walking it, bringing guys along, pushing guys ahead of me on it. I love all that stuff. But I have this hunger to shine brightly and be the best in the world. And not me as an individual per se, but like whether I'm leading this team or whatever my role is, I don't really give a shit. I want to be the best in the world. I want our gym to be the best in the world. And if life had happened to take me on some other path, I would want to be the best in the world at whatever that path had been. So that's why I'm doing this.
I respect that a lot. Only answer I haven't liked was Montel's answer, because he gave me some bullshit about, oh, well, I'm good at fighting, so I guess I'll do that because you got to get paid for some bullshit. And then he gave me a real answer later. Fuck him. Anyways.
Nah, we talked about that, man. With him, like, when it's in his head that he's doing an interview, you get one version of Montel. When it's in his head that he's talking to a friend, it's a totally different version. I told you, okay, I think I probably told you this story, but he's like, his first couple UFC fights, he's like very like rigid and like 1 or 2 word sentences, and like he's just specifically answering the question. And like, we know how funny he is. We know what real Montel is like, right? And he's gonna go do an interview with DC, John Anik. I think Brent Fitzgerald was the third guy. Whoever was down there. They do an interview with you so that they've got talking points during the broadcast. And I'm like, man, I want the real motherfucking Montel. Like, how do I get the real Montel? And we're in the hallway waiting for his turn. And so I'm talking shit, because like real Montel comes out when you get him talking shit with you. And I said, what did he tell you? The reason he fights is because he's
everybody's going to do the thing that they're the best at, and then they'll get compensated for it.
Man, so I started telling him, like, the reason you fight is because you can't play basketball. And what was that like growing up on the north side? I mean, I'm like,
never want you.
I'm like very straight faced. Like, hey, I was talking to your mom. I was talking to your mom, and she said the reason you fight is because you can't play basketball. And I bet that was hard for you growing up on the north side. And he like, so I got real Montel now. Now we're like shittering and chopping at each other. And I'm like, dude, I bet you can't even jump high. And he's like, I can jump higher than you. Now, Josh, okay. Peak athleticism, Jake, could dunk a softball, right? I got little hands. I couldn't do basketball, but I could get up there. I am not peak athleticism, Jake. But he's talking all this shit. I'm like, I jump higher than you right now. Like, I got springs in my legs, bro. He's like, we need witnesses. So we run to the UFC office where a bunch of the people we know are like there. And I was like, I need someone to see this. He like jumps up and sticks his hand up inside of a ceiling light, like super high. And I'm like, I need everyone to see this too. And I am fully operating under the assumption I'm going to jump higher than him. Now, I'm not. I know I'm not. But I package that into a ball and stick it in the back. It's gone.
Yep.
Full belief Jake leaps up, and I can jump. But I didn't jump as high as Montel. And I land, and I'm like, that was bullshit. Everyone forget what you saw. Let's get back out in the hallway. So we get back out there. He's running his mouth, talking shit. And I'm like, well, I still heard you can't play basketball. He's like, I can hoop, whatever. So we start playing shadow basketball in the hallway. This is a made-up game that's not real. And I'm like shooting and calling it like, bucket, check ball, pussy. And he's like, you didn't make, I'm like, fuck you, give me the ball. And I'm like backing him down and like hitting him with little spin moves. I'm like, bucket. The UFC, one of the security guys, comes out of the DC room that like DC and the interviews are in. He's like, what are you guys doing? I'm like, come here, I need you. He like walks over to like hold this sandal up near the hoop. So the security guard is standing in the hallway, and I'm completely making up the fact that I'm busting Montel shit, right? And I'm like 7-0 check ball pussy, and he's like arguing, and then they're like, you guys are next. And we walk in, and we're loud. They can hear us in there. Like we are interrupting the previous interview, and they walk in, and I don't even give him a chance to like get into his like stick up his butt Montel mode. I was like, Montel, tell DC how you fat old coach just busted your ass 7-0 in hallway basketball. And DC stands up and he goes, you let your coach beat you in hallway basketball? And Montel's like, don't listen to nothing this man says. And then it's real Montel. He's really like, we're talking shit. We're going back and forth. This man hero worships me. That's why he's this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, I just busted your shit 7-0. Bro, we're really, really going. Oh, Joe Rogan's in there with us, too. That's what it was. It was Joe, DC, and John Anik. And I've known John Anik since before UFC. Yeah. I used to participate in his sports. John sits back and is like, I think he can see what I'm doing because Montel's, like, he's always so quiet with these guys. Bro, we spend like 30 minutes of like funny, agitated, hilarious Montel. And then I think that was some of the best shit that they got afterwards. A couple of them came up and they were like, that was fucking awesome. I'm like, if we just get him talking shit and having fun, it's a very different character. So I don't want guys to, it's not like, hey, when you get the microphone, you should do this. But we all kind of want him to be real, like be your real self. And I don't know how you do it on the microphone. I don't know if he wants to. Like, he's allowed to be who he wants to be. And if he wants to be a little bit, he doesn't open up to just anyone, and that's fine. But it was fun in that moment to crack the shell open and let them all look inside a little bit. And I did it by making up a game and cheating at it.
And cheating.
As soon as he argued, I blocked that one. I'm like, fuck you, it's 6-0, check ball, pussy. Yep. That was a good one.
Beautiful. Is there anything else people need to know?
I don't know, man. We can do it again if they do.
Yeah, we definitely will. 100%. This is only one of the series that I'm going to do. I'm going to do so this is Origins of an Expert. I want to do like a technical piece too, where I break down fights with other people who like know what they're looking at. And then I'm probably even going to do like the mainstream, like, oh, there's news going on. Here's the fights we need to hype. Because you got to get all the avenues. You got to get all the people, right? This is the one I really care about. And then the technical piece is the one that I actually care about. But I'm going to do all sorts of shit. So yeah, 100% going to be back once I have some other shit going on. Cool. But at this point, we almost doubled the next. We're an hour past what I did with Solo. And we've doubled what I did with Montel. And my family just got back. So I got to go be dad. So thank you so much.
I knew we would. As soon as you told me, like, hey, this is just a conversation, I'm like, oh, what's the record?
Right? Yeah, exactly. Joe Rogan does 3 hours. Yo, Rogan did 7 hours with Ari Shaffir. It wasn't on Rogan's podcast, but they did. Ari Shaffir did this thing where he went back and he took the very first special that comedians did and he listened to it with them. Right? And after every joke, they would stop and they would talk about like the mechanics of what was going on, blah, 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 blah. Brian Campbell did this with Rashad Evans too. They went through every single fight in Rashad's career, and they would like pause in between rounds and be like, "What were you thinking? How'd you get here? What did blah 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 blah?" And it was super cool shit. I don't know why I started telling you that at all.
Long podcast, 7-hour podcast.
Yeah, because Rogan did like 7 hours. It was a 1-hour tape. It took him and Ari 7 hours to get through that whole thing. And people say that nobody's gonna be listening, but we still got 2 people looking. I don't know if it's the same 2 people, but we still got 2 people looking. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Toodaloo, motherfucker.